Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Football Experience, brought to you by On the Pod. We left you for about a week and a half or 2 weeks from when you last listened to us, and
Well, it was we had to observe the period of mourning, so
yeah.
we couldn't in
But
good conscience come on and talk about football.
you know what actually happened though, and I messaged you, so we gave our
No,
predictions
no.
or our outlook for that weekend. And then and I think the Queen died the night before, if I'm not mistaken. And there was rumors or talk of the Premier League potentially postponing games, but it wasn't confirmed at the time that we recorded. And then once we finished, I get a notification on my phone. I hadn't checked my phone for the last 20 minutes or half an hour of us recording, and then I get a notification saying, "Oh, Premier League fixtures postponed for this weekend." And I'm like, shit! We just gave all our I think the last half hour or 40 minutes was just us talking about the
Oh no.
weekend's fixtures. So yeah, rest in peace, Queen.
I will say, and not to sound insensitive, but she did do Liverpool a solid. She's given them a bit of time to get some players back.
Mu-
And you can
Must
somewhat see it.
must be a closet Liverpool fan then.
Yeah.
Um,
R.I.P.
the
Thank
the
you.
the other notable news is that I bought one of those ring lights to have a little
Yeah,
bit of
high definition of Neb.
yeah. So
You're really making me look bad now with how me in this dark room.
it's time to upgrade that setup. But I'm just trying to work with the camera angles and stuff because it's on this stand, and the stand can go up to a meter 60 apparently. And I can't, if I set it behind the table or behind the laptop, it's too far away. If I set it here where it is right now, it's side on. So over the next couple of podcasts, I'll be trying to figure out what the best angle to see my face is.
God have mercy on our viewers.
Yeah, so this is the this is the cop angle. It's the side on criminal angle. Um, so hopefully people enjoy my mugshot. I'm gonna hand the reins over to you because I think when we talked about it, we said we'll start off with the Champions League because there wasn't really any that weekend that was postponed in the Premier League. There wasn't really any notable fixtures in other leagues, if I'm not mistaken. I don't.
It was a good weekend to miss. It
Yeah,
really was.
I don't think I watched any football that weekend. In all honesty, I watched a
I
couple
watched a
of
bit, but
yeah,
I really didn't have much noteworthy to
yeah.
take from it. Except, though, let's start on this
All right.
because this is great, especially given what we were talking about like a couple of pods ago with Richarlison.
Hmm.
You must have seen what happened in the Juve game against Salah. I can't say it.
Oh yeah,
Salernitana. Oh my god, the farcical. It was so fun. I know this is old news because this happened so long ago, but we gotta talk
yeah.
about
We
it.
have to touch on
Because
it.
you hanging the crap on Richarlison for taking his shirt off and getting booked. This one topped the lot. Milik takes his shirt off, gets a second yellow card, gets sent off, and then VAR overrules the goal, which in the first place should not be overruled because Bonucci doesn't touch the ball.
Hmm.
So I don't think he's interfering with play. And then on the flip side of that, he wasn't even offside.
Yeah,
Oh,
there was a player
incredible.
outside the box that was defending the short corner that they measured him. He was 2.5 meters
Yeah.
from the goal or from the goal line, and yeah, Bonucci was 2.8 meters. They actually measured. How the hell did they miss that? That's a massive oversight,
That's
and
crazy.
that
Just the
cost them
drama. There was
all
three
three
red
points as
cards.
well. Yeah.
And three red cards ensued. And Milik gets set off for taking his shirt off for the second bookable. It's just incredible.
Surely there's a tribunal, post match tribunal, that's going to overrule the red card at least. I know
I
the
don't
game
know,
isn't going
man,
to get
because
overruled, but
I think on technicality they could probably just still say that he did an lawful action, and he was deservingly booked. So I'm not 100% sure
Yeah, but the thing is,
what
like,
happens.
if it's that whole thing that we talked about, like going back retroactively to cancel out actions after a foul or after a like an offense, then it's what I mentioned going back to the Pickford tackle on Van Dijk. Was it an offside in the build up and then
Yeah.
yeah, so it's the same thing. Like how come Pickford doesn't get a red card then for that tackle? He didn't even get a yellow either. So
Yeah, that one should have been a red. I think
yeah,
we've done that one like 3 or 4 times
yeah,
now. But
but now the conversation is how come now there's been two occurrences in the space of a week, I think, in the where a player's been booked for taking the shirt off celebration, but then you go back and you rule an offside.
like it doesn't change the fact that they took their shirt off. That's like I think the thing that they're going to rest on.
I know, but it's
Yeah, no, I get your point.
my
Like they
argument
wouldn't
is
have
the
they
whole
wouldn't have done it if it's they
yeah,
wouldn't have done it if it's offside. But I think their argument will be, well, they still did it, and like
yeah.
that doesn't change whether it's a goal or not. Doesn't change that fact.
Yeah,
So
but I think
um,
in this instance where it actually was a goal,
you're crazy, just madness that they couldn't have that camera angle to get the right
I
decision. It's
yeah, I don't know if it was necessarily the camera angle. I think it was more them focusing on all the congestion in the box that
no, I
and
know,
then
and they
being
didn't.
like having that tunnel
Yeah,
vision that screwed them up. So I imagine like in the EPL there's a post match tribunal, I believe, because like they decide on like with red cards they decide whether it's going to be like 3 games, 4 games, 5 games, etc. or more. Or I think even players have been like they've had their sentence like reduced as well in certain instances where they've reviewed the tackle or whatever or the incident and they've been like, oh, it's actually not as harsh. I think that's happened before in the past. So I don't
yeah.
know. I'd imagine Milik should get
Well,
he shouldn't
he
like.
wasn't.
I don't think there's any like next game suspensions if you get 2 yellows, is there? Or is
No,
it
I think
one?
it's a one match ban, and he wasn't on the bench, and he didn't play against Monza in the 1-0 defeat. And just before we move off Juve, sort of compounding their misery, they obviously draw that game at home to the team who I know I can see their name in my head. I just can't pronounce it for some reason right now. So I'm sorry to all our Italian listeners. And then obviously they lose midweek at home to Benfica, which for me was an absolutely pivotal tie in this group because I thought it would be between, well, I'm not breaking any ground, but it was going to be between Juve and Benfica, and I tipped Benfica to come out of the group, and that prediction's looking good now that they were able to win 2-1 away at the Allianz Stadium. And then just to compound it on the weekend, the red card um, sort of disease infiltrates the squad, and Di Maria gets sent off before half time against Monza, and they fall 1-0 away to Monza. But just so, and I've heard this on other podcasts about why they might stick with Allegri, and I also heard an interesting fact that um, Juve don't sack managers mid-season, so they've just never done it, and they've had a few. Sarri was hanging on for a while. Pirlo obviously was hanging on, but they never pulled the trigger mid-season. And also Allegri's is owed massive money by Juve, and I think that's the reason. I think the chairman actually got confronted at a restaurant after maybe the Benfica loss, and he got told you should sack Allegri, and he said, "Are you going to pay out his compensation?" So hardly a vote of confidence. That's kind of telling you why he's still in the job, really, at Juve, if that story is true. And it'll be interesting because they've got to be right on the thinnest of thin threads in terms of what they're going to do with him, and in terms of are they going to sack him. Um, but just on that sort of, I don't know. Did you see the Di Maria sending off?
No, I didn't see it.
So he was being sort of tugged back on the halfway line, and then he sort of like throws his arm somewhat, and he makes contact maybe around the ribs. It's not with the point of the elbow or anything like that. It was sort of with the forearm into the ribs, sort of get off. I can understand why you give him a red card because it's sort of that retaliation thing where you give the referee an option. I don't think referees should take that option if it's not severe contact and if it's not like a punch or an elbow or anything to the head, obviously. I think a yellow card will do in that situation. But the reaction of the Monza player is what really pissed me off because you can tell it's not the most forceful contact. You can tell, you can see in the slow motion, he's got a moment where he's thinking about it. And then he's like, oh, what I want to see in that situation, I want to see the Monza player get a yellow card for the foul. And then I want to see him get a yellow card for the simulation. And I want them both sent off because that bullshit's got to stop. I hate that shit and it needs to get out of the game. Di Maria is wrong in that instance to give the referee a decision to make, but I want to see them both get sent off in that situation because I just hate the play acting. I hate the bullshit that goes around it. So I thought because Juve are so irrelevant and we're probably not going to talk about them, while we're on the topic, I just wanted to bring it up because that's something I saw this weekend that really pissed me off.
I think in my limited experience of playing here in Europe, even though it is the lower leagues, I've seen so much like of that play acting. Like, and this is like, yeah, in the lower leagues. So this isn't in professional football. Like just a week ago, like I went up for a 50-50 header, but like and I just like I was more, I think it was like my shoulder into his back, and then like he just goes down like a sack of potatoes. He's holding his back, he's holding his head. Like I didn't get booked for it, but it's like I didn't even make contact with you, really. Like why are you down for like 5 minutes as if like someone shot you? Like, so
Lower league football. We're not even playing for big bucks.
not even playing for any bucks. so so like I can completely, and like coming from, you know, where like we grew up playing in Australia, where like, and I think we pride ourselves on that that hard and fair play type of style of sports, not just football. So like to us, like it really gets under our skin, whereas here in Europe, it seems to be ingrained, like within to use any means necessary, to like deceive the ref or whatever, or to try and get an advantage, however small it may be. So,
and just before we move away from that, is just the thing that pisses me off so much about it is because at the end of the day, we're talking about a sport. It's not life or death. We're not curing cancer. We're not educating the young, the next generations. We're talking about sport. In a way, we are educating the next generation through the role models and the examples we're set. And that's the way we want to educate them. It's wrong on every level. This is about competition and it's about fair competition. And we've got to remember that at the end of the day, Klopp puts it the perfect way in saying it's the most important of the least important things. It's like, it's not that important a thing. It's just something we do for entertainment and for fun. And, you know, it gives us good morals and whatnot. And of course, we love it because we talk about it on this pod all the time, and we talk about it off the pod and whatnot. And it's a huge part of our life. But when you look at it in the cold light of day, it's still just sport. So, like, why are we trying to deceive people? Why are we trying to do it in this way? It just shouldn't be done in this way. It should be done in a fair way. And the better team and the more healthy competition team and the fairer team, whatever, they'll come out on top at the end of it. So it's just, I don't know, it just really annoys me, and it's probably a reason why a lot of people maybe are turning over to the women's game, because I don't think it's nearly as prevalent over there because, you know, it's a younger competition. It hasn't had sort of these stakes on it for so long. So I don't know, but it's just something that really annoys me, and I think we need to put more onus on referees to fix it and stop giving in to these players' bullshit. And let's just say, look, if you're going to do that, I'm going to give you might get the free kick in the end, but I'm going to give you a yellow card for simulation anyway, because that contact wasn't that hard.
well, I think what you said, like the stakes aren't as big in the women's game, and like I've heard that argument before with like the men's game, that because there's so much money involved with it, like a win or a draw or a loss. It can be, for instance, with the manager, it can be the difference between a manager getting sacked or not. And sometimes these small details, they it comes down to people's jobs and people's livelihoods. And yeah, these guys are playing, and these guys are playing for like massive amounts of money. Like I'd like to see the average salary across leagues. I know that obviously you'll have outliers where like you'll have the younger players on like say 20,000 a week or 10,000 a week, and then you'll have like the superstars that are on like 300 or 350,000. But I imagine the average is somewhere around 100,000 a week, and then obviously if you're not performing to that level, if you're not getting those small advantages, even though they're not sportsmanlike, then it can come down to like you being sent to another team, sent out on loan, or sold off, or as a manager losing your job. So there's a lot. At what you said, there's a lot more at stake. The way to combat it is obviously to start either at the Champions League level, to start like to set the precedent there, or in one of the top leagues like in England. I'd say England could lead the charge because they've always been that more. They've always been like a more harder style, more fair play style of football, I guess, and so they could lead that charge. Or even I think the next one closest to is probably Germany, but it won't start in Italy or Spain, or any of the lower leagues. So I feel like it needs to be UEFA, it needs to be the Champions League or England or Germany to start that, I guess, change or revolution.
Yeah, I want to see it in Europe, but I will say that in the MLS they've already somewhat started it in terms of players who need medical treatment. I think need to be off the pitch for like a couple of minutes to be assessed and stuff. So, and that's something I've been calling for. I want it to be a longer amount of time because I think a lot of the time these players can just get up and play. We've already touched on the head injuries, I think, a couple of weeks ago. So for me, it's just let's referees, come on, let's do your job. Let's protect the integrity of the game. Let's stop getting sludged, bogged down in the nitty gritty technicalities of why we give decisions, and let's just keep the integrity and the foundation of the game intact and why we do it, and referee accordingly. Because I just think they can do a lot better. Because I know players will cop the blame for it. But at the end of the day, if they weren't getting these decisions, players will stop quickly. Players will adapt quickly if things change quickly from a refereeing perspective. And refs just need to understand the game better because too many of these referees just don't apply any common sense, and it's just frustrating to watch these guys who really don't they like, I won't say they all don't understand football because of course they've been in football for so long, but so many of them appear to just not understand the game. Can we get referees who understand the game and can referee accordingly, please?
I'm curious, like, and like now you have VAR as well. So like, if like the referee can, if he really wants to go back and look at a decision and like see it from another angle, he can. So yeah, they have no excuse now, and like VAR is, I guess, exposing bad refereeing, like either up in the box or the referee on the field. But like, do these refs play on like let's say they ref on the Saturday? Do they play like Sunday League or anything? Like, do they actually play football? Because like they would have played as juniors, but that's junior football. Like, do they actually play now as seniors or veterans? That's the question, I reckon.
And just quickly before, and I promise this is my last point on this before we get away from referees. I don't know if you watched, for me, what was the game of the weekend, and I hope we'll talk about the actual game a little bit later, but Milan against Napoli, in probably the best two teams in Italy, squaring off at the San Siro, and Milan's unbeaten run coming to an end. That first penalty decision against Serginho Dest, who came on at halftime and was adjudged after VAR to have fouled Kvaratskhelia in the box. I hated the decision. I know technically, again, this is the technical thing. Technically, he kicks his foot so that his foot goes into the ball, and then Kvaratskhelia could easily keep his feet in that moment. but he decides to go down because he's like, oh, there's a little bit of contact. And then the thing that I hated, I don't think VAR in that situation should even recommend to the referee to go and have a look at the screen. Because as soon as you recommend to go and have a look at the screen, the pressure is on the referee to go by the book, to go technicality and say that's a penalty. But let's just say, you know what? There's not enough contact there to award a 12-yard free spot kick against just the goalkeeper, which is 75% a goal. It's just not enough for that. The punishment does not fit the crime. And I think we just need to apply some common sense there and say, look, technically there was contact. He didn't touch the ball. But that is so minimal. I'm not giving a penalty for that. You need to earn a penalty. We can't be deciding such key fixtures as well. And we can't be deciding them in this way. And I think VAR just didn't do their job because for me, that was not a clear and obvious error. And let's just get on with the game. And as well, let's punish Kvaratskhelia for diving. Or not punish him, but not reward it. It's like he just dove. We can all see that. Don't reward him with a penalty, please.
I don't know. I saw that one and I thought it was a foul. Like it was similar to that the Van Dijk one on Osimhen the previous week.
That's because I don't think that one was a penalty either.
Yeah. But look, if it's gonna come down, like this idea comes down to like I guess subjective ruling according to different referees, and like what if instead of giving like okay, directly in front of goal, if there's a foul inside the box, I think that warrants a penalty decision more than, for instance, toward at the byline or at the corner of the box or something like that. So maybe give direct free kicks from there. So it's like you're taking a direct free kick from 14 yards out, 8 yards out or something, or an indirect free kick from 8 yards out, but it's on that. It's a very short distance to goal. So maybe start doing something like that where it's okay, this isn't enough for what you said, the penalties are a 75% chance to be a goal scoring opportunity, not opportunity, an actual goal. So why not then give direct or indirect free kicks where you can set up a 10-man wall? So it's okay, you're taking a free kick, so you can just rocket it from 8 yards but on an angle, or you can set up some set plays.
Or I don't know if you've watched field hockey, but a penalty corner. So you just the corner is taken from the edge of the box, and the defenders can't. Yeah, they're all on the line and they can't start above that.
Yeah,
because
so
I think we brought it up for the Saka one against Mings in the Aston Villa game, because that one you could have given a penalty, but for me he's going away from goal and the contact's minimal. I think it's a foul, but it shouldn't warrant a penalty.
Yeah, see,
I think your idea there is pretty perfect.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I think we've touched on it where certain of these fouls that are not given because they're in the box, where well, it would have been given if it's on the halfway line. 100% of them have been given on the halfway line. So why is it not given in the box then? So that's the argument, and then maybe for those ones take something from hockey, but you need to, I guess, trial it, and the perfect place to trial it is during pre-season. In those sort of 3 or 4 team cup games or whatever that teams host. So trial it at those sort of games where you have it in a mini tournament. It's something that you could look at, but again, it's super subjective, because some refs are going to give for instance, a penalty corner, and some refs are going to give an actual penalty.
Yeah, and that's where the common sense comes into it. So, look, we're just asking UEFA. We know you listen to this pod. All right, can you just listen up, and can you just make the required changes in next preseason, please? Let's just trial some things.
I think trials and tribulations of penalty decisions.
That's a good title for the start of this pod.
Yeah, I'll put that one in the timestamps then. But moving on to the actual, I guess, Champions League, was there any sort of games that you wanted to highlight? Because there was Man City Dortmund. that was, I guess, sort of a big game. But there wasn't really any big games.
Well,
But a Bayern Barca
well,
as
what about
well.
what about Barca going to Munich? I thought that was probably the biggest game.
Do you want to start on that one then?
Yeah, we can start on that. There's probably
And then just touch on some
three.
of the other ones. Yeah, there's probably like 3 or 4 games to actually, like, I guess, go
Yeah,
into detail in. But like, I now, because it happened like a whole week ago
I
rather than
know.
like 2 or 3 days.
I
Like, I need to actually try and recall like how it went, and like from memory, um, I thought Barca were the better team, at least in the first half, or at least in the first
In the
30
first
minutes.
half, definitely.
Yeah, and
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
and Lewandowski had some like guilt edge chances that he, like, normally he would bury. Like, he had at least 2 or 3. I'm pretty sure that were like, I can't believe he didn't score that. Like, it was. I think it was easier to miss than to score. Is that how the saying goes? Or easier to score than to miss?
Score and miss, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he had at least 2 or 3 chances like that where yeah, Barca should have went into the break, 2 or 3 nil up, potentially, because I don't think, I can't remember Bayern really having that many opportunities in the first half at least, and then in the second
No.
half they came out with a little bit more control, and I guess once that first goal fell, um, Barca sort of started to look. They sort of lost their heads. It seemed they lost their calm, and like they lost that control of the game they had in the first half after the first goal came. But I'm not sure that a 2-0 is necessarily. Would you say it's a deserved result or a fair result based on the whole game?
No, because I think Barcelona in the first half were much more dominant than Bayern were at any point in the second half. I think Bayern were the better team in the second half, but it took a set piece. It took a Lucas Hernandez header for them to get the lead, and then from that point, I thought they sort of established themselves in the game as the better team. But the first half, Barcelona battered them, and that's away from home, and Bayern were barely in the game. It was the worst I'd seen Musiala play this season. Even though I still think his movement was good, he was picking up good positions for the most part. I just thought what he did in those positions was a bit more snatchy than we're used to seeing, and maybe that's the stage. And this is probably definitely the biggest game he's had this season. And this season is sort of his first season as one of Europe's best, at least young players, if not players in general. So I thought that sort of led itself into sort of showed what Bayern were that first half. They weren't great, and Barca were battering them. But it was interesting because going into the game, I was thinking about because I watched Barca's game against Cadiz, I think, the week before in La Liga. And what I've noticed this season, I'd be interested to see if there's stats on this, but it appears that Xavi changes his team every single week. And it's not just like minimal changes. It's often like, all right, I'm going to take Busquets out for this game and I'm going to bring Frankie de Jong in. I'm going to take Gavi out. He puts in completely new midfields or 2 new midfielders next to Pedri. He brings in Cassie, he brings in Gavi, he brings in Busquets, De Jong, and then right back, sometimes he's playing Arojo, sometimes he's playing Kunde, and then the centre back partnerships, and then obviously now they've got the new toy in Marcos Alonso who starts in this game at the Allianz. The front three, sometimes it's Rafinha, sometimes it's Dembele. So I think he's still coming to grips with what his team will be, but we've had a bit of time and he hasn't really stuck to anything, which is interesting to me. And it could be a disadvantage, but in this season, it could also be an advantage when we're playing so many games every 3 days in the lead up to the World Cup. And then after the World Cup, we're trying to cram them in again. So for Barcelona to have this squad and to be on the run that they're on of all wins except for one draw on the opening day in La Liga, and then playing well at the Allianz, maybe deserving to win the game, but falling ultimately to Bayern. But to do that with changing the team as often as he does and keeping everyone fresh, is interesting. It'll be interesting to see if he can keep everyone happy as we go throughout the season as well. That's the big question. But if he can keep everyone pretty happy, pretty hungry, and then the main part is fresh, then come later in the season when they're coming up against teams who have been relying on players game in and game out for so long, whereas he has such a big squad to choose from. Maybe that's part of his thinking in why he hasn't brought in or he hasn't stuck to a starting 11 really. And even not even a starting 11, he hasn't stuck to a back four or a midfield three or a front three. He hasn't stuck to anything. It's been changed so often. So yeah, I thought I wanted to look at both sides of the coin on that one, and it's just a sort of early theory. It'll be interesting to see how that progresses. But in terms of the game, I was so disappointed to see that he started with Christensen and Marcos Alonso. So disappointed because Marcos Alonso loses his man for the and to a lesser extent, and I know this is sacrilegious because he's one of maybe the all time great holding midfielders, but as well to start with Busquets as well. I don't need to I know he's a club legend, but I don't need to see him in this Barcelona team. I think you've got Frank Cassie and you've got Frankie De Jong. Use those guys. Those guys are up and coming world class or potential world class players. Use those guys, please. If you're going to use an old guy, use PK at the back and use Jordi Alba. Why are we not using Jordi Alba? I'm so fascinated to know what's gone on between Jordi Alba and Barcelona this summer. I know he's on astronomical wages. I think he's on like 400,000 euros a week. So my theory is that the club said, "Can you freeze this guy out? We need to get rid of him so that we can register all our new signings." And just on a little side note, I think Jordi Alba would be perfect for PSG because I don't have that much faith in Mendes as the left wing back, but Jordi Alba changes things for me. And Jordi Alba gives you an option to come into midfield and help Verratti and whoever's playing next to Verratti in there. So I think you can somewhat solve two problems at once. And there's no doubt the PSG are a club who can take on those wages. So that's just an interesting little wrinkle that I wanted to throw out there. But for me, last season, Jordi Alba was still my third team left back. So I still think he's one of the better left backs in the world. So I can't believe that he's not starting. And especially for Marcos Alonso. Marcos Alonso's fine as a wing back. But as one of a back four, as a left back in a back four, no thank you. And he loses Lucas Hernandez for that set piece. And then Barca lose the game. I don't want to say completely because of that, but that's the turning point. That's where the game changes. So, and then for the second goal, and this is why I was disappointed that Busquets was in the team. For the second goal, Busquets goes to press up next to Lewandowski, and then he even looks back. He even goes, and he sees that Pedri and Gavi are behind him, and it's like an adult. It's like a dad having two 5-year-old kids and just leaving those 5-year-old kids in charge of the house while he just wanders off. It's like you can't do that. You can't leave Pedri and Gavi in charge of that midfield behind you and you just wander off to half-heartedly press in the attacking area. Like, I don't want to say that's definitely not a pattern of Busquets because he's such an intelligent footballer. But in that moment, what's he thinking? Why does he do that? Like, let Gavi go and press that. He's got all the energy in the world. You can just sit. And then I think it's Sane breaks through the middle or someone breaks through the middle and they're all at sea and they can see that second goal. So it was a fascinating game. I thought it somewhat lived up to the billing because Barcelona, Bayern Munich, huge game. And I thought it was really pretty entertaining. I was pretty pleased to see Barcelona play well in the first half because they're somewhat still a wild card at this level with all the new signings. But Bayern responded reasonably well in the second half, but they're not in a great moment themselves. We know that. They've just lost their first game of the season on the weekend as well after drawing 3 in the Bundesliga before that, which is unheard of. But yeah, I also thought that and I've been on this point a few times this season as my last point, but this was a statement game. And Barcelona they nearly came out, or Bayern nearly let Barcelona make a statement in this game. Because in the first half, my headline would have been Barcelona came out and made a statement that we're genuine challengers for this competition this season. But then it all flips when you have a couple of laxed moments in defence and Bayern punish you for it. So it's just funny how the narrative can flip so quickly. In 45 minutes, the whole narrative, the whole takeaway of the game for me just flipped completely. Whereas Barcelona could have made this bold statement saying, look, we're here and we're here to win this thing this season. Whereas now it's like, hey, are they ready to win it? They've still got these little weaknesses that can be exploited by top teams like Bayern Munich. So I just thought that was an interesting little subplot as well.
Yeah, so I completely agree with that, and I think those weaknesses and those like lapses of concentration are probably more down to all of the new players coming in, and like them just not having that that like team cohesion yet, or like that I'm gonna die for the next player mentality just yet, and that usually comes when a team is together for like 1 or 2 or 3 years. You know, it builds over time, and I think it's slowly starting to be built because, like we both agree, like that first half, yeah, Barca should have really been like they battered Bayern, and they should have been ahead 2 or 3 goals. And like when I was watching, I was like, damn, like if they can get a result here, like and like when the season first started, I was skeptical about the amount of new players coming into Barca and like them being actual genuine challengers for either La Liga or the Champions League, whereas you're like, well, they can make the semis at least. And after watching the first half, I was like, I can possibly see them making the semis because, like, as the season goes on, the team cohesion builds. They're getting results in La Liga, and they're like, and every game seems to be like a 3-0 or a 4-0 or something like that. Like, there seems to be a pretty big differential in the scoreline. But albeit against, you know, middle to bottom half of the table opposition, but they're still racking up the points. So it'll be interesting once they start to verse. Although didn't they beat Seville 3-0 or 4-0?
Yeah, but Sevilla you can put as a mid-table to lower table. The way they've started the season has been terrible.
But all in all, yeah, they're I guess proving me wrong in my initial thoughts of how they'd go this season. So yes, they lost 2-0, but I think it was more a lack of cohesion and probably like team experience. And I guess with such a young midfield with like Pedri and Gavi, and like yes, you have Busquets there, but like Pedri and Gavi, like they're not even 20 yet, are they? They're both like 18, 19. So
yeah. Well, I know Pedri's not 20, so yeah.
I'm pretty sure Gavi's a year younger than Pedri, if I'm not mistaken.
There you go.
Yeah, so I think that will build, but I still do think that at the end of it all, second in La Liga, and I'll say quarterfinals for them, unless they finish. But like, yeah, that's going to be interesting if they can get a win at home against Bayern. Then it'll come down to goal difference, won't it? Or like, or the head-to-head first, and then goal difference. So if they can beat Bayern like 3-0 or 4-1 or whatever at home, they finish top and then finish equal points. They finish on top of the table. But if they finish second and get, I don't know, if they get like a Man City or someone, they're not getting past the round of 16. So it really depends who their round of 16 opponent is. But I think they get knocked out in the quarters if they get an okay opponent in the round of 16.
Well, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves with Barcelona is probably the last thought I want on this, because this has now set up those back-to-back ties against Inter perfectly. And while I think Barcelona definitely have better players and are probably a better team than Inter, there's no doubt in my mind that Inter are a good enough team to win and then draw in those games and then put themselves in the driver's seat to be second. So what a fascinating... That's probably, without looking at all the other back-to-backs we have, that stands out straight away as such an intriguing back-to-back to see who qualifies out of this group because, as well, what it does for Bayern, that win, is says we've beaten our toughest two opponents in the group, and now we get to play Victoria Pilsen in the back-to-back. We should be on 12 points by the end of all of this. So it's really between Inter and Barca, and it comes down to really this back-to-back that we have coming up. So once international football's done and once we're back to it, that's going to be absolutely fascinating.
How many times can you say back in the space of a minute?
I know, a
lot. But any other fixtures that caught your eye, at least on the first match day? Like obviously,
I don't know if it was on.
Liverpool
Yeah, I don't know if it
played
was on the
against
first.
Ajax. Yeah,
that was the one I wanted to go
and
into.
Sporting beat Tottenham. I watched the end of that game, and where Sporting scored the 2 goals in like I think it was like after 85 minutes they scored both goals. I didn't watch the game entirely, but yeah, I just watched the last bit. But remember how I said Ronaldo probably should have went to Sporting, like to his childhood club, and finished off like his career there. It was, and then they end up beating Tottenham 2-0. Like ended up getting a pretty decent result to put themselves in a decent position to actually qualify out of their group, considering they beat the team that I think we predicted that will finish top of that group. But yeah, like any thoughts on any of those games, Liverpool Ajax or Tottenham Sporting? I didn't watch either. I didn't watch the Liverpool Ajax. So you're going to take the lead.
Touch on. I definitely have thoughts on the Liverpool game because obviously I'm a Liverpool supporter, so I will. But just to touch on the Sporting Tottenham game, it's definitely a good thing. I think that they didn't get Ronaldo because Marcus Edwards had a great game in this game, and he nearly scored one of the best goals you'll ever see. It's just a pity that he didn't finish off the move in I think the first half. But it was just same old Tottenham, really. It was boring Tottenham. It was uninspiring Tottenham. And I've been hugely harsh on this group. And I think Marseille and Eintracht somewhat proved my point because you wouldn't really want to watch that game. But Sporting are actually a pretty good side, especially from what I saw in this game. So maybe I shouldn't be so harsh on them. And they're definitely in pole position to get out of the group now. And we know Conte's record in the Champions League is not very good, so it might just be a case that he's really lucky that he has such poor teams as Marseille and Eintracht as the other two in the group, because now it kind of looks like Sporting might finish top of this group. So, that's just a little takeaway from that. But the Liverpool game, I definitely have some thoughts on because I think, it must have been. It was after the Napoli game. And Klopp used such an interesting word to describe how we needed to be or what needed to happen from this point on. And he said we need to reinvent ourselves. And I just found that fascinating because the thing that I've got on Klopp about is the lack of flexibility and the lack of reinvention from last season to this season, the lack of sort of adapting to our depleted energy levels and our depleted squad. But in that point, and the reinvention, my point on the reinvention is that in the game there were discernible times, there were clear times where you could see a Ajax midfielder get on the ball with their head up, and Liverpool's back four dropped off. They dropped. They tracked runners. It was unbelievable. It was like, I imagine if you're a parent and you see like your young son and he's like maybe 4 years old and he goes up and shakes an adult's hand. It was just like, oh my God, they did it. They're growing up. They dropped off and tracked runners. My God, what's happened to this team? I just thought if that was the reinvention, then great, because that was awesome to see. We actually didn't play with this stupid arrogance where we just think, we won't track that run. We'll just hope that he gets flagged offside. No, we'll actually drop off when someone has the ball. Fantastic. Who would have known a fundamental basic of football might actually work? But I thought that was, if that's a side of things to come, then please more of that. But there were two other sort of words that you have to take away from the game as well. The replenishment, because we actually Jota we had in the starting lineup. He was awesome. He was just so much different to what we've had up front to start this season. He actually dropped into pockets. He linked up the play. He played within the system. He pressed properly. Having Jota back, and like, he hasn't been in great form, but having him back and having someone who's understood the system for whatever, nearly 2 seasons now, was just incredible to see. I couldn't believe how much of a difference he made. Obviously, you know that when Thiago comes back into the team, he's going to make a big difference. I'm still not saying we can rely on Thiago because we know his injury record, we know his track record with that. But man, he made a huge difference. And Joel Matip, we already saw it in the second half of that Napoli game where I know we conceded another goal and we lost 4-0, but you could see the difference he made when he came into the heart of that central defense, and Joe Gomez got kicked out, thankfully, because he was terrible in the few games that he had to play. So to have three key players back down the spine of that team to replenish the team made such a difference. And it looked like Liverpool were actually a good team again, a team that deserved to be in tier one as a contender for this competition. And also, and I touched on it earlier, we got a break. We got a break from playing every 3 days, and we got a chance to, rejuvenate a little bit, to get some energy back in our legs. And I thought that told as well. We were playing at a higher intensity. So all of those factors go into it and go into a Liverpool team that I thought that was easily our best performance of the season. And I know it was only a 2-1 win and we had to rely on a goal from a set piece at the end, but it was also, I would say it was one of our best performances of the last 2 seasons. And we played some pretty decent games last season, but I don't think we were as attentive to our defensive work as we were in this game last season a lot of the time. So that was really encouraging to see. Long may it continue. I hope we remain diligent with our defensive work, and obviously I hope everyone remains fit, because that's the Liverpool that we can be this season. But like I say, I don't want to get ahead of myself, because a lot of that is predicated on Jota. I don't worry about that much, but Joel Matip and Thiago I worry about in terms of injuries. And we're relying on them hugely in this team. So let's hope they stay fit, because if they do, Liverpool can get back to being 95% of that team we saw last season.
I think the big one out of those two is obviously Thiago, because he just adds so much to your midfield, like so much control, and I've over the last couple of games, like I've seen him. I think in the game before this one, where he came in as a sub, and like then I think there was a stat that came out that like I think it was against Napoli that he came on like the last 15 minutes or something, or the last 10 minutes, and I think they said that he made like 4 tackles in those 15 minutes, which was more than what the midfield 3 before him in the 60 minutes or 70 minutes made, like in that whole time, like combined. So he made more tackles than the midfield 3 combined before he got brought on, which, it's telling, like, to have someone like that in the team. And then not only does he put in that work off the ball, he puts in that work on the ball as well. Like, he's just an absolute like different class. And I'd say like when he won that, I'd say a big part of that Bayern team winning the Champions League 3 years ago, 3 years ago, that was in large part to him. Like he looked so good. Like he had so much class, so much like control over that ball. And I'd say it was similar to, I guess, he's very similar to like to Modric in that sense, where like you can't get the ball off him, and he doesn't lose the ball either, and he always seems to find a pass as well. And yeah, hopefully for you guys, he can stay fit. That's been his biggest enemy over his career, just that the injuries, and that
You
they haven't been serious injuries. They've been like those shitty little ones, like where you're out for like 3-4 weeks and you lose a little bit of momentum and stuff like that.
you know what's sneaky about Thiago's skill set as well? He can actually beat a player. He can take on someone 1v1 and take them out of the game, and then the thing opens up for him. So yeah, that's something I've definitely noticed as well. And he's huge. He's such a world class player, and no wonder we wanted him from Bayern Munich. Let's just, like you say, hope that he stays fit.
Did he come in on a free as well? I'm pretty sure his
I think it
contract
was
was
like,
up.
I think it was 30, 35. I think his contract was expiring the next season. So it
Yeah.
was kind of like the Mane thing, how it's
Okay.
like, oh, this guy's going to leave at the end of next season, but
Yeah, I remember
you can pay to get him.
I
Yeah.
remember he was either really cheap or he was or he was actually free because I remember there was something with his contract. But the other, I guess the other big game in the fixture or in the match days, it was City Dortmund. So do you want to touch on that one of them, and then if there's any other games that pique your interest, we can go over them before we jump into the Premier League and other games around the leagues as well.
Well, there's a few other games that I'll want to touch on as well, but I'm guessing you watched the Man City Dortmund game, so
Yeah,
you did.
I watched it and like it was, you know how like I think it was like the last part of the pod before that where I was just like I don't really bother watching City because I know exactly what I'm gonna get. But now like I sort of want to watch them just to see Haaland pretty much because he's just an absolute beast. And yeah, like it was pretty much just the usual City performance where they dominate the ball, they create chances, but they're stifled by a low block pretty much. Dortmund did get I guess the opening goal on the counter, but then it seems like City seem to like have found that they seem to have developed that like identity of coming back from a goal or two down. Like they've done it so many times over the past, I'd say like 10 games, 15 games if you're going back into last season. And I guess like there was the West Ham game. I think they were down 2-0, was it? The Aston Villa game, they were down 2-0 as well, if I'm not mistaken. And then this season, I think against Newcastle, they were down 2-0 and then they were down 3-1. Was there another game from this season as well, or
Palace at home.
Palace as well?
They were down 2-0.
Yeah, exactly. And like they seem to have found that like that mental toughness of like keeping their calm, even when they go down like a goal or even two goals, and they always seem to like come back and not only get a draw, not something like I know in some of those games, like I think only in the West Ham and in the Newcastle game, like they got a draw, but in the other games they got wins out of it. And this is just like another one that goes down into their little checkbook of like mental toughness where they go down. And I think did Dortmund score in like the 60th or 70th minute? So they scored like sort of late. It wasn't like super early that they scored. And they still managed to come back and score 2 goals. And like, what a goal by Haaland as well. Like,
Yeah.
it's just ridiculous. Like he has.
No, but you're burying the lead. What a ball by Cancelo!
Oh yeah. Like that too.
But
Like
if you're yeah, go on. Sorry.
you see the goal first, like when I saw like in real time, like as it's happening, like I saw the goal, I'm like, what the hell is that? And then once they rerun the replays, like you then see the ball by Cancelo, and you're like, wait, he hit that with the outside of his foot as well, and it was like picture perfect. Like, holy shit! Like yeah, like the ball and like the acrobatics of Haaland are like equally as good as each other. Like you don't know what's better. Like it's like when you have. It's like when you have like a plate of food in front of you and you don't, and like there's 2 equally as good like pieces of like food. Like, you know, you have your steak and then like you have this awesome like potato next to it. and that you don't know what to finish on. You don't know whether to go. You don't
Yeah,
know whether the
yeah,
last
yeah.
part should be the steak or the potato. But like, and it was like that. You like, is the ball is the assist better than the goal? Like, or is the goal better than the assist? Like, in like, and Cancelo has that in his locker as well. He just seems to like. I've seen that over the last couple of weeks where like he just sort of just like pops that outside of the boot ball towards the back post, and I think has Haaland already scored a goal from that sort of assist in the Premier League?
Maybe,
Like,
but I remember Raheem Sterling, I think, scored one against Everton at the Etihad last season from the angle on the ball was even more ridiculous than this one. It was like I swear Cancelo was pretty much dead on in front with the goal, and he somehow got enough bend with the outside of his foot to put it into Sterling's path. But what I wanted to say as well, just on that point, was if I'm Dortmund, do I know who that is? That's João Cancelo. Like you say, I've seen him do that. He has that in his locker often. And if you give him time and space, he will do that to you. So can someone just please go out and press that? I know we're tired, but can someone just go out? And that leads into my next point. And it's not a counter to your point on City being resilient, but it's something that accentuates their resiliency in these situations. I think the opposition shit themselves in trying to hold on to a lead against City. They just, I know that it's somewhat City run them into the ground, much like Liverpool do. And I've touched on the way Liverpool finish games, and they're strong to finish games, even in games they're not playing very well, because they do run you into the ground, and City absolutely do it. Not the same way, but they do that to you as well. They outwork you. They're intense, and they make you feel it in the last 30 minutes. But as well, teams just seem somewhat already beaten, trying to hold on to a lead against City, and especially when they concede that first one, they know the second one's coming. So it's definitely not. It's not a flip. It's not a counter, but it accentuates that resilience that Man City can show in those situations, because I thought this was easily Dortmund's most impressive game of the season. And I think in the last week, my feelings around Dortmund have been brightened. I feel more bright about Dortmund's future. I think on the weekend they beat Schalke in the derby. Makuku scores. I think he's the youngest derby goal scorer ever. I think he's still only 17, which is incredible. They got Adeyemi back. So they look. Chan played his best game maybe in years against Man City. Hummels and Sula actually looked like a tight defensive partnership until that last, 15, 20 minutes. So my feeling of Dortmund has changed, definitely. I thought they were quite impressive in the game. They could have drawn that game on another day, but like you say, City have that resilience, and other teams are somewhat beaten once they concede that equaliser, or that even that first goal that makes it 2-1. You're still 2-1 up. Once that happens, these teams are just deflated and they're killed, and they know that City are coming again, and there's not much you can do to stop it, because we don't need to add anything to City. We know how good they are. We know where they're good, and we know how scary they are. So, what can you say?
yeah, what can you say? But have you seen have you seen Cruyff's goal for Barca? I can't remember who it was against. I think Pep said it was against Sevilla. It was very similar, where like to Haaland's goal, but like in a lot of people jump to saying that's an Ibra type goal, because I think Ibra's scored a similar type goals to that, like goals, not goal. But the first one that popped into mind was actually Cruyff, because as you know, like I'm a massive Cruyff fan, and for me probably he's probably like the best. For me, he's probably like the best player of all time. But also of what he went on to add to football after he retired. Because the thing is, for me, like, he didn't have any tricks. He was just a simple sort of player, but he was very smart, and like, yeah, he has Ballon d'Ors to his name as well. Like, he's recognized as a very good player. But anyway, it reminded me of that one. So like, a lot of people would jump to Ibra, but I jumped to Cruyff, and like Pepe mentioned in his interview that it was very similar to a goal that Cruyff scored for Barca. I think it might have been against Seville. But yeah, anyway, Haaland, man, what a beast.
Honestly, just to finish the point, and this is going to sound like, I don't know, people might not like this, but like, it was a good finish. I wasn't awestruck by the finish, and maybe that's just because I know how good Haaland is. But I never had any doubt that the athlete that he is was going to get to that ball. I really didn't. For me, I was
Not in that
definitely more
way.
taken aback. Not even taken aback, but I was definitely more impressed by Cancelo's ball. I know it
Yeah.
was a good finish, but I don't know. It's probably because Haaland's so good. I never had any doubt that he was going to get to that ball.
Yeah, but not in
I
that
I,
way. You probably would have thought, okay,
I get it,
he'll get a
but
head to it or something. But I don't think I think the way that how far it was, I don't think you can throw your body at it and get your
well, he
head to it.
can.
No, and get your head to it. If you're going to throw your body at it, you need to throw your feet at it and be acrobatic, rather than
Yeah, he
having
is.
doing a diving header or something like that. But yeah, he already has 3 goals to his name in the group stages. I think I predicted he would get 10.
Yeah,
So 3 after 2 games, and I think that takes his tally up to, is it 14 that he has in like his first 8 games in all competitions?
sounds alright.
Something like that. So how we'll say last week, like, I think I said that he'll get minimum 40. Well, 8 games in out of I think if they play, like, if they get deep into the FA Cup, deep into League Cup, deep into Champions League, so I'm talking semi-finals minimum, which you would expect them to get to, if not finals. That's going to be what, 50 games all up.
Yeah.
I think Liverpool played 56 games or 58 games last season, but they got to finals. So, and also League Cup, I think the semis are two legs as well, aren't they? So, considering that there's still 40 games left in the season, in all competitions, he's almost running at 2 goals a game. I can see 40 as a minimum, and 30 as a minimum in the Premier League, 40 in all competitions.
We'll see. I can't put anything past him at this stage. Although those numbers are just ridiculous.
Well, perhaps, but like, we've sort of, if this was like Messi or Ronaldo a couple of years back, like, it doesn't sound ridiculous. But now, when a player's gotten off to that sort of start, I don't know. I think it's possible, but obviously, there's a lot of things to consider in football. So, like, not only injuries to him, but injuries to his teammates as well. Because, like, what happens if Foden and De Bruyne get injured? Like, will he or Cancelo? Like, will he continue getting the service that he's currently getting from them? I'd be interested to see how many goals De Bruyne has assisted out of those 14 as well. So
And I think listeners should leave in the comments how many goals they think Haaland will finish on this season, because I think that's the question on everyone's lips. Because he's just ridiculous.
Yeah,
So he might just blow all those records away.
Yeah.
I guess just to finish on the match, the Wednesday match, the Wednesday for me, Tuesday night for you.
Hang on. But while they're writing in the comments, make sure they like and subscribe the video.
Yes, good plug. Well done. On the Wednesday fixtures, and I gave this group a fair bit of stick as well. The Atletico, Leverkusen, Porto, Bruges group. Bruges have now won 2 from 2 and won 4-0 at the Dragao, which I think Porto's manager, Conte Sal, got affronted outside the stadium in his car. I think his family were in the car, so that's definitely not something you want to see. But
Yeah.
4-0 at home to Bruges is a cry for help, definitely. And Bruges now look like they could get out of the group, which is just incredible. But I did watch the Leverkusen Atletico game, and Atletico set up incredibly defensively. They only have a few I think, really good players. I'm really down on Atletico. They're not very good. And obviously, we might touch on them in the Madrid Derby against Real Madrid on the weekend as well. But they put Reynaldo as their sort of left wing back, which I thought was incredible because he's a left sided centre back. And I think they also used Molina on the other side. So both pretty defensive wing backs in this game. And then it was much the same case as what he did at the Etihad last season, where Simeone, I think we got up to 60 minutes, and I think he wanted to change it and go more attacking. So he brings on Carrasco as the left wing back, and takes Ronaldo off, who was probably their best defender, I think, in the squad. Takes him off at the same time Leverkusen bring on, and I can't believe this guy doesn't start for them, or didn't start in this game, but they bring on Frimpong as a right wing back, and both goals come from that side, from delivery from that side. And I've talked about Frimpong. I think he'd be a wonderful addition to any team who needs an attacking right wing back, i.e. Tottenham Hotspur, who might need a player like that. The way he links up with Diaby is really good. It's the best thing that Leverkusen have. I know they got Patrick Schick, who looked a little bit pale in this game. If he can regain some form, maybe Leverkusen can regain some form. But I just wanted to touch on that little thing that I noticed where I think Simeone somewhat, I don't know why he does it. Why doesn't he just come out and play the game in a little bit more offensive way? Why does he wait till this point? And then that's two occasions now where I've seen where he waits to a point, tries to make it more offensive, and then they lose the game because of it. Just double down. Just stick to your guns and just say, we've come here for a draw and we're going to stick it out to get a draw the whole way. And if we have to look like absolute dog shit, then we'll look like dog shit, but we'll still get a draw. So I just don't know what the thinking is there, and they're in real jeopardy of, especially given how good Bruges have been. They're in jeopardy of not getting out of this group if Leverkusen could continue. But I think I'm right in saying how weak this group is because it's a terrible group, and I think there's other. I wish Inter were in this group, for example, because I wish that they had a better chance maybe of getting out. But we'll see. Like we said, those games against Barcelona are huge. And so I don't know. Did you watch any other games from the second match day, the Wednesday night for
No.
you?
I was, as you know, I was away, getting the last bit of summer under my belt.
Yeah,
So that's
fair
that's
enough.
also that's the reason why we had, I guess, a week off in between pods. But like just on your Atletico point, we've said that I think over the there's been like games even going back like the last couple of seasons where, like what you mentioned, in like around the 60th or 70th minute they decide to play, and it's like, what the hell? Like why didn't they just start like this? I think even against City last season, was it? I think it was the second leg where they actually came out from the start, and they looked like they were actually battering City. But even in the first leg, I think in the last 15 or 20 minutes, they started to get on top of the ball and actually started to play and create chances. And you're like, they have the players and the capability to do so. Like, why aren't they playing like this more often against, and especially against a team like Leverkusen as well, who, like, it's not a Liverpool, it's not a City, it's not a Bayern or a Barca. Like, it's not the top echelon of football. Like, it's I'd say Leverkusen are probably a rung below Atletico, would you say, or around that level?
Maybe even a couple. I mean,
Yeah,
Leverkusen, I can't remember the last time they were in the Champions League before this. It was probably 5 or so seasons. It's been a while.
yeah. So like Atletico, like, and like they won the league 2 years ago. So why are they not playing with, I guess, more, I guess, enthusiasm? Would you say is the word? And they've shown that they're capable of it. They're more than capable of it as well.
Yeah, and I'm not asking them to change their whole identity. I don't care if you're a defense-minded team, but there's definitely moments where if you've got good enough players, you can play better than that.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't have better players, because we said, I think, at the start of the season that João Felix was going to be pivotal to their chances to reach a higher ceiling. And he gets brought off in the derby on the weekend, and he sulks straight down the tunnel. I think his attitude is diabolical. I don't think Simeone is all to blame for his digression. And I don't know why João Felix hasn't forced a move away from Atletico if he hates it so much. So I think both parties are to blame there. And
I think
yeah,
did we talk about it where like he would have been perfect? I think I mentioned he would have been perfect for Arsenal, like and also Liverpool. Like he would, considering how Arsenal, and like we'll obviously get into EPL, but considering how Arsenal have been playing in this season and also like transitioning into this style of playing, and I mentioned it, I think when we did like transfers and everything, he would have been perfect and to bring the best out of his qualities. Liverpool as well, I think he would have been perfect for your system, especially after letting Mane go. I thought he would have been a better fit for you guys than Nunez, in my opinion.
I
You
don't
don't
like
think?
his attitude. I
Yeah,
don't
but
like what I've
the
seen
thing
of
is,
his attitude.
he's been at Atletico for what 3 seasons now, and I just feel like, and like when he was at Benfica, he was like touted as like I guess the next big star, and like he's shown a lot of talent, and it just feels like that the way that Atletico play, it doesn't play to his strengths.
But
Um,
to play devil's advocate, what did he expect when he left Benfica for
yeah,
Atletico?
yeah,
He was going into a Diego Simeone team. You
I
know
know.
what you get with a Diego Simeone team.
Yeah, I know.
So what was he expecting? I don't know. I just think if you're going to make that move, make the most of it, and he hasn't. And for
Maybe it's
me,
that.
he
Go on.
he can't. For me, he can't make a move to another top European club. He needs to go a level below and prove that he can do it again, and then maybe work his way up. He's still young, so he can do that. But for me, he doesn't deserve another move to a top European club. He needs to prove it again.
Yeah, possibly, but like, what would his next team be then? Because
Uh,
I'd say he's coming to the end of his contract, surely.
you'd think so. I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to think about that one a little bit more. But I
But
guess that gives us. Yeah, sorry. Did you have a last
no,
point on
but
that?
like, you know how you mentioned that he knew what he was getting into when he signed for Diego Simeone. But it's also maybe that hope that a coach will, as like he'll possibly change the way he plays, and like we've seen it in the past, like um, look, the most notable one in my mind is Arsenal. Like they play completely different now to how they played it in the FA Cup win three years ago, because they have a completely different team. So you would have thought, okay, maybe if Diego Simeone is starting to sign, a little bit more quality players, maybe he'll sort of change his style, but he hasn't changed at all. Similar to Klopp, plays exactly the same way. Guardiola changes a little bit, but he essentially plays the same way. But yeah, like maybe it's that sort of hope that if you're signing those sort of players, that the style will change, which it hasn't.
Yeah, to be fair and unfair to Simeone, I think there was a couple of seasons there just before they won the league where he sort of tried to change it a little bit. He brought in more flair players, like the João Felixes, and he tried to change it. I don't know if that's just because he's not a coach who's good at changing it to a more attacking style, but it didn't work. And then obviously they go to somewhat a more defensive style and they win the league again. And then he's like, well, this is the way I coach. So this is how I have to coach. Did he get scarred by that experience? So to be fair to him, he has tried it. But I think his thinking is I'm going to have a solid defensive structure, but then I'm just going to put good players in that structure. And it just hasn't worked for years now. I know they won that weird league title, but La Liga was incredibly weak that season. So, and Suarez was the key player, and Suarez was advancing in years when they won that. So, I guess that's finishing up on my Atletico points, and I think it's a perfect segue to go straight from one distressed team who look like they're going to struggle to get out of the group stage to another one who have a new manager, and Chelsea under Graham Potter were unable to hold on to the win against Salzburg at home, 1-1 draw, and that leaves them on 1 point from their first two games. And now they have, and this is the second intriguing back-to-back, and I'm going to say back-to-back as many times as I can in a minute, but
Back to
this
back
is
to
the
back
second
to back.
intriguing one. But now we get to see Chelsea against Milan
Yeah.
in match days 3 and 4, and that's going to be fascinating because Chelsea need results in these. Oh, if they're on 1 point only at this stage, you'd think that they probably need 4 points from these games. And Milan is not an easy team to get 4 points from 2 games.
Especially at San Siro.
So exactly. So they need to go at least unbeaten, and they need to win one of them. Chelsea are in grave danger, and it was interesting in this game. First thing that was, I guess, interesting, probably not interesting for people who watch Salzburg, but this was my first real intent watch of them. They're probably the most aggressive team in Europe. The way they hunt the ball is incredibly aggressive. It can get reckless at times. They can give away stupid free kicks at times. But my God, they see the ball and they want it, and they're going to try and take anyone out to get that ball. So their aggression startled me, definitely. And that's probably what makes them such a tough opponent in the Champions League. And then the second thing was just how much Chelsea looked like Brighton. It just looked like maybe better Brighton, because he goes in. I don't know why he really plays Aubameyang in this game. I guess they don't really have strikers, but they play nice patterns, but they don't really open Salzburg up. They don't create too much. They finally get a goal in the second half, but they can't hold on. So, look, I know Graham Potter's in it, and I know I like him as a manager, but is it fair to expect him to come in and just change the fortunes of Chelsea? I don't think so. I think their recruitment in the summer wasn't good enough. I think the turmoil that they've been through, and we might touch on this or we might leave it for another pod in terms of what their owner has come in and his attitude since he's come in. And I don't know if it's a deflection tactic. You'd hope so, because if it's a deflection tactic, that's actually kind of smart. But it just seems like an American thing where he comes in and just gives all these what people will perceive to be stupid American opinions. He's got to understand that better. But yeah, I don't think it's fair to expect Graham Potter to come in and just change Chelsea overnight. And it'll be interesting to see how much they continue to look like his Brighton teams in the coming weeks, because for his sake, I hope that he's not a one-trick pony and that's all he's got, what he's shown at Brighton. But to be fair, I think he's evolved Brighton over the years he's been there. From what I've seen from him, I expect him to be a manager who can continue to evolve and evolve this Chelsea team. But he'll probably need some windows, and he'll need. And this might be another point we touch on, probably for another pod, to be fair. But I believe they just got Salzburg's sporting director in as Chelsea's sporting director. So let's hope that he can work his magic in terms of signings and in terms of giving Graham Potter the support that he needs to continue to evolve. But yeah, I thought it was an interesting game. I think I already touched on that going into the game, that you know what, like with the Chelsea squad and the way they already played under Tuchel, like you could really see this happening where they're just Brighton but with better players. So that's what it looked like in the first game. Let's see how it looks in the coming games. But those games against Milan are massive, because they could really get knocked out in this group stage.
Yeah, they especially considering they got a new manager in, and it's going to take time for him to adjust. And he's not that Chelsea, that typical Chelsea manager where they bring in someone that has, a couple of leagues or titles under their belts and like who knows how to deal with big personalities. Because I think at one point some people were rumoring that Pochettino would be up for the job, but I don't know why everyone's so big on Pochettino, to be honest. Because
He was the first name who came to my head,
but
and
he didn't
I thought
show
that I
he didn't
thought this.
show it at PSG. He's more of a builder of average to better than average players. He's more that's the way I see him, at least.
Yeah, what I was going to say is the first name who popped to my head, but um, I also thought that that's just too much hype from his Tottenham days, because if you watch what he did at PSG, it wasn't very good.
Yeah, I
He
wasn't
wasn't able
impressed.
to.
He didn't even
Yeah,
win
he wasn't
he
able
didn't
to
even
do
win the
anything
league
with
in
that
one in
team.
his first season.
Yeah, he won the league at least, but
Yeah, but he won the league in his second season, didn't he? He didn't win the league in his first season.
I think he only. Oh, did he come halfway through the first
Yeah,
season?
well, I don't know whether he came
Yeah,
halfway
yeah.
through. No, because Tuchel did Tuchel get sacked halfway through? Yeah, he got sacked halfway through, and then he came to Chelsea, and Pochettino came in. Yeah, so it would have been halfway through, but he didn't win the league um, in that season. And considering it's PSG, like you'd expect them to win the league every season. Um, but it also did. Did I read correctly that Sterling played as like a left wing back in a five?
Uh, Look, he was so attacking. He was more of a winger. Um, but yeah, I thought. Oh, wait, I've just got to clarify something. Um, Christoph Christoph Freund, who is the sporting director at RB Leipzig, RB Salzburg, he actually rejected the Chelsea offer, so
Oh, so he didn't
he
come
will
in.
not be the new. Yeah, and that's after Michael Edwards already did as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was so attacking. He was more of a left winger, with Cucurella playing as the third centre back, who obviously becomes the default left back in possession. So look, I didn't think that was too out of the ordinary. It wasn't like he was asking Sterling to track all the way back. I think if you probably look at his average position, it was probably closer to that of a winger than a left back or a left wing back.
Yeah. Also, since you mentioned the American owner, I think I think it was while we were on a mini hiatus, and I sent you a screenshot of how he said that the EPL should do an All Star week or weekend. Bloody bastard! Doesn't give credit where credit is due. He doesn't give a shout out to the football experience. What's up with
No,
that?
no, no. Look, I think we should leave this one for another pod. But the quick point I'll make is we don't want credit for that, because the way that that was received by the English media and the way it's been received by English football fans has been, for me, somewhat ridiculous. But I guess we'll touch on that on another pod.
Yeah,
But
but
the way that idea,
he
yeah, the way it was
has.
received
Yeah,
was,
but the thing is, like I think he just blurted, oh, there should be like an All Star weekend. It's like, okay, the All Star weekend in America is during the middle of the season, and like I think Klopp came out, he's like, yeah, when is it gonna happen? And the way we put it forward is like it happens at the end of the season for the FA Cup weekend. That's how it should be run, and that way, like,
do you want it?
but we'll go into that on the next one because we're already at an hour and 20 in, and we need
Yeah,
to
okay, all
we need to
right.
still touch on the EPL fixtures. But I'll just put it there that American bastard, he's not giving us credit. Typical American attitude. So Todd Bowley, screw you, man. Moving on. Moving on.
Moving on, there's just
Mo-
two more quick hits that I want from that match day of the Champions League. The first one, we go from RB Salzburg to RB Leipzig, who went to the Bernabeu. I thought this was the first game in which you saw Real Madrid really miss Casemiro, because I thought in the first half Leipzig were exploiting holes in the central part of that midfield of Real Madrid. Of course, towards the end of the game, Real Madrid's class tells, and Fede Valverde just quietly is becoming one of the best players. He's definitely one of the standout performers of this season, and the way he's playing in recent weeks has been nothing short of world class. And I always saw him as a central midfielder, but he's been playing on that right sort of wing, and he's been doing an unbelievable job. So he scored two. Well, the first one, the goal against, I think it might have been Osasuna, whoever they played the weekend before. If you haven't seen that one, check it out. He picks up the ball deep in his own
I
half,
think I've
drives it
seen
all the
that
way
one.
to the edge of, yeah, the edge of the opposition box, and then on his weaker foot smashes it top corner in a
Yeah.
point where they're losing the game 1-0. And again, he scores a goal in the point where they're drawing 0-0 and it's nearly the end of the game against Leipzig. So what a player he's becoming. That's good for any Uruguay fans and the Uruguay national team. And I think they'll be a dark horse in this coming World Cup. But yeah, like I say, I think this is the first time we saw the absence of Casemiro in that midfield, because I thought Tchouaméni couldn't get through the same kind of defensive work as Casemiro. And that's a lot to expect, because Casemiro was one of the best defensive players in the world last season, and may still be if he comes into the United team and plays well. But yeah, and that just worries me a little bit, because for the later stages of the competition, because like I've said, Leipzig, I think, are a team who have pretty good attackers. When you look at Nkunku, you look at Forsberg, you look at Olmo, who I think is injured at the moment, but when he comes back in, Andre Silva's on the bench who could come in, and then obviously Timo Werner's back at the club. So in terms of the fluidity that they can get in attack, Marco Rose has dispatched the 3-4-3, and he wants to play, it looks like, a 4-2-3-1. Much in the same mold that a lot of clubs around Europe play, as we've seen United and Ten Hag adopt. Bayern as well are probably the most famous exponents of it, where you have a really fluid, versatile front four, and they're always looking to pick up pockets and then attack quickly with those four players and the other six backing them up from behind. So I thought that gave Real Madrid a lot of problems, probably in the first half, maybe first 60 minutes of the game, but they're class told. But will that be the case when they come up against better teams, or will we feel the Casemiro absence? And I think Real Madrid's start to the season has eased my mind on that, because I guess, well, I'll touch on it now because we'll do mainly Premier League towards the end. But in that Atletico Real Madrid game on the weekend, I thought Tchouaméni had a pretty good game and was instrumental, obviously, in the first goal for Rodrigo. And look, Real Madrid have started the season like a house on fire. They've won all of their games. Sure, many, and don't get me wrong. When I lament the absence of Casemiro, I'm not saying Tchouaméni's not a very good player already, and I'm also not saying that he's not going to become a world class player, because I think he has all the tools in his arsenal to be a world class player. But he's very young, and you're asking him to come in for who I rated as the best holding midfielder in the world last season, and who was absolutely pivotal to Real Madrid winning the Champions League. So when we get to that stage of the competition, when we get to post-World Cup Champions League knockout stage football, I'm very interested to see how he stands up to the task, because it's one of two areas where I worry about Real Madrid, which is probably the least amount of areas where I worry about a team in European football. So Real Madrid are steadily, I know we ranked who we thought were favourites for the competition, but Real Madrid are steadily making their way up to edging that top spot. I think I'm getting towards the point where I'm starting to take that question mark off them and just putting them in tier one undeniably, because the start of the season's been fantastic. And you can look at the flip side as well, and you can say, look, they didn't even play that well in this game and they still walk away with a 2-0 win. So they're definitely a team who I expect to be contending for this thing again.
I think with like what I've noticed with Madrid is like they seem to be in like this sort of cruise control, and then like they just sort of like they're just swatting away teams that are inferior to them, and they haven't exactly hit that stride yet, because they haven't exactly been required to hit that stride. And the players around, I guess, that spine, and also to note, Benzema's been injured for the past
Yeah, I know.
3 weeks, I think.
Since the Celtic game.
Yeah, so the players around that spine are now starting to lift their game as well. So you're not like, yeah, like Kroos and Modric are still running things in the midfield, but like the other players are also starting to gel and pick up some form as well. And that's obviously like a very good thing. Whereas like last season, you're like, okay, it's the Benzema, Kroos, and Modric show, and then it's just the supporting cast. Now it's like, okay, Valverde is starting to pick things up. Vinicius is it seems that every game, like he was great last season, but now it's like every game he's like increasing by like 1% or 0.5%, like he's cementing his spot like by 1%, every week. But that, and like he's getting better and better and better. And
Just
then
quietly before you go on,
yeah,
Vinny Jr. might be the best player in the world.
you
If it
reckon?
wasn't for Erling Haaland, he would be the best player in the world on form for me at this present moment. He has been unbelievable this season. So good.
Just while we were also on that, I'm at this current point in time, I'm putting Brazil as my World Cup winners. I reckon
It's
that's
very fair. They're my second favourites.
I reckon they're the favorites because they have a stacked squad, especially that midfield and forward line. It just seems stacked.
When we get the chance to watch some international football this weekend, we'll go through that next
Yeah,
pod,
yeah,
I
yeah.
reckon.
Then we'll get a better idea. But like just on paper, like their team just seems it seems insanely stacked. So, like and all their players are like hitting form as well, not like in for their clubs. But yeah, going back to Real Madrid, how I mentioned that last season was just the trio. Now, yeah, the supporting cast is starting to become the main actors, I suppose, is the best way to put it. Which, and yeah, it's gonna be interesting once they go up against, especially this season, how they go up against PSG or Man City or Liverpool. Because last season, when they came into those games, it's like they're the underdogs. Whereas this season, it's like we're looking at it and we're like, okay, we need to take them seriously. It's probably more of a coin flip. So that's gonna be interesting once we get to the knockout stages because they're obviously gonna finish first in their group. Like I don't think there's any doubts about that unless unless every single one of their players, I don't know, takes laxatives before the game or something, or someone slips them some laxatives in their tea or whatever.
You know all about that as an Arsenal fan. Back in '06, the last day of the season, Tottenham have the mysterious bout of food poisoning at Upton Park.
Well, there you go. It's stranger things have happened. So and there's precedent as well. Is there any other teams that you want to touch on?
Yeah, just
or
quickly,
any
and
other notes?
I'll touch on their Champions League game and their league game because I thought there was a big contrast in them. But PSG, who I always dedicate a little bit because
It's PSG.
I don't know where it's come from. Well, yeah, because it's PSG. They got Neymar, Messi, and Mbappe up front, so you got to talk about them a little bit. Yeah, I don't know where it's come from because I've always been I guess I'm buying low on PSG because everyone sort of dumped their stock, and I'm just seeing it all float around, and I'm like, yeah, I might pick up a bit of that. I mean, they've got Neymar, they got Mbappe, they got Messi. I mean, that's worth a gamble. But in the Champions League game, oh man, I was pretty disappointed in what I saw yet again.
Who they verse like Maccabi Haifa or
Yeah,
something?
Maccabi Haifa and Maccabi were. It's a good atmosphere they got there, but they were really on top of PSG in the first half, and PSG were a bit lackadaisical, as they often are. I want to see more from Marquinhos. I want to see him defend better because I think on his days, one of the best in the world, but he's been a bit flimsy in recent weeks. I thought he started the season really well, but he's just sort of drifted a little bit lately. Messi didn't want to run at all in the game. What's new? The front three did not work at all against the ball. But then we see him against Lyon in one of their biggest games in Ligue 1 for the season, away as well. And Lyon normally win this fixture as well. I think they got a good record in this fixture. And Messi ran. And he didn't have the ball. He actually ran. He actually applied there were moments in the game where he actually applied a little bit of a counter press where they lost the ball. And there was one moment where he actually forced a mistake from a Lyon defender and they won the ball back. And I actually saw a moment where Mbappe got back in and helped Neymar out because Neymar wasn't in position and he actually got back into the position for him. Now, admittedly, he didn't see his work out the whole way and he left the gap. that they didn't exploit, but these are little things that I pick up on because when they play against better teams, that gap will be exploited. But to be fair to Neymar, I think he's actually put in a fair bit of work this season. It's not always the smartest work, and that's where I want to see him improve. I want to see him do it, work with his head as much as his legs sometimes. But out of the front three, he's the one who has been asked to do the most defensive work, which I just want to see Mbappe have some moments where he puts in some work. And Messi had some moments against Lyon. And I thought it was a vintage Messi performance. I thought it was Messi. Because going into this game against Lyon, I was going to say Messi needs to be dropped because I think Neymar and Mbappe are easily the number one and two options in that front line. And you can't afford to have a third passenger who won't do any work against the ball. And I think they needed another pair of legs another pair of legs in the center of midfield. But if Messi's going to play like he did against Lyon, then you can afford to have him in the team because I'm not saying he was peak Luis Suarez pressing the ball when they didn't have it, but he actually did a little bit of work, which is all I'm asking. I know you're Leo Messi. I know what you give us going forward, but can you just do a little bit of work? Can you do something productive when we don't have the ball? Same goes for Mbappe, and Mbappe should have the legs to do it. But I also know what a threat he is on the counter. So if he can get himself into positions that if they do win the ball somewhere else, he can be dangerous. But I was so down on PSG after the Champions League game, and then I'm not going to say I'm so up on them, but I thought their performance against Lyon was quite good. I know there were moments where the wide parts, either side of their central midfielders, got exploited a little bit, but I thought the work of the front three was more positive, and I just wonder if maybe Galtier had a little bit of an effect after the game against Maccabi in the week and sort of highlighted this to the front three. And look, hopefully they listen because I want these players to succeed because they're fantastic players. I want to see them playing well together because that has the potential to be something unbelievable to watch. But I just want them doing more work against the ball. I'm not asking for everything. I'm just asking for enough to get by against these good teams because the quality in the team, I know we've lamented the midfield and I still worry about it. But Fabian Ruiz finally came in for his first start against Lyon, and he looked all right. He's not quite the presence I'd want in that midfield, but I think he's an upgrade on Vitinha, maybe even an upgrade on Verratti as well. So, look, I'm not as low as I was after the Champions League, after what I saw against Lyon. And I pretty much know your thoughts on PSG until we see something different against a big team.
Yeah, I want to see them actually. I want to see how they go against a big team, especially over two legs. But I want to point out I saw a stat. I'm not sure if it was referring to the Lyon game or if it was referring to the season as a whole, like up until now. So it basically showed a triangle between Messi, Mbappe, and Neymar, and it basically showed it was either assists between the three for the season, or if it was referring to the Lyon game, then it was just passes. And there was basically, I think, like from between Messi and Neymar, there was like 5 or 6 passes / assists between the two, and then like them feeding Neymar, it was like 3 or 4 from each of those. But there was nothing coming back from Mbappe. Mbappe didn't have. It was like 0-0, like 0 passes or assists to. I think it might have been passes if it was referring to the Lyon game. So like there was 0 passes back from Mbappe to Neymar or Messi. So like there's no service coming back from Mbappe.
Well, he is, but to be fair to him, in his role, he is very much the finisher of moves. He's the one who gets him behind, and
Yeah,
he's the one.
I suppose so.
But
But like,
there have been instances this season, mainly the Neymar one against Juve, where he could pass the ball to his teammates.
yeah. So I'm not, like I said, I wasn't sure if it was just focusing on passes for the Lyon game or if it was in total assists for the season, because I'm sure Mbappe's assisted either, because they scored like probably 20 goals or so far, like as a team this season. I'm sure Mbappe's assisted Neymar or Messi at least once. So it might have been just
Well, yeah,
like,
no, yeah, he definitely has a few times for I think Neymar because in that Lille game that they won 6 or 7, whatever it was, he was playing the facilitator in that game. He still got a hat trick,
yeah. So
but he was definitely trying to set them up.
yeah. So it was probably just passes. But even so, like if if they haven't still resolved that, or there's still that underlying, I don't know, is it jealousy or whatever it is? If there's still that underlying issue between Mbappe and the team, or Mbappe and certain players, then that is going to get exposed in the big games. You're not going to see it in these small games. You're going to see it in the big games when they're hit with a bit of adversity. So yeah, I still reckon the jury's out on PSG.
Yeah, no doubt. But just a quick counter to that, I guess. I definitely don't think there's any animosity coming from Messi's side, or you
Oh
can't see
no.
it. He doesn't show anything. And Messi and Neymar are linking up fantastically.
Yeah,
And to
they
be fair,
are.
Messi is providing some very nice passes for Mbappe as well this
Yeah, but
season.
that's only because
Um,
Mbappe, Mr. President Mbappe, is going to deport him back to Argentina.
who'd have thought we'd come to a day when the shoe's on the other foot and Messi isn't the president of the club that he's at? Unbelievable. But let's not forget that a few seasons ago, and there's that famous, I call it meme, but obviously it's meme.
Maybe.
There's that famous meme of Bobby Firmino stuck between Salah and Mane after a Burnley game, where you could cut the tension with a knife, and Bobby looks at the camera, he's like, let's not forget that there was for a few seasons we all thought there was a power struggle between Salah and Mane, and Liverpool did pretty well in that time as well. So I just think you get that when you get these huge egos and these huge players all in the one place.
Yeah.
And like they don't come much bigger than these three. So there are going to be those things. It'll be interesting to see how the club and how Galtier deal with them. But there's no doubt that if you want to read between the lines, we're going to have plenty of ammunition in this team because those egos are massive.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's when they're hit with adversity. That's when we're gonna see whether those cracks actually open up, or whether they've been filled with some quality putty. But I think that's enough Champions League. Like we've been hanging. I think this is an hour and 40 minutes, pretty much just on Champions League.
Well, it is the premier competition.
Yeah,
It's the one that I enjoy talking about the most, no doubt.
true. And if I was actually home, I would have probably watched a couple more games. And I would have been able to probably provide some more input. But moving on, we'll go to the Premier League next, and then we'll finish off with Milan, Napoli, and Real Madrid, because we've already talked about Lyon, PSG, right?
Yeah.
And then we'll finish off with that Atletico, Real Madrid after the Premier League. So, was there any game? The Chelsea Liverpool game got cancelled, and I think United Leeds got cancelled because of obviously the funeral and there being a lack of policing, and apparently these games having that sort of derby and that extra bit of animosity. So they didn't have obviously enough.
Well, and United Leeds, of course, as well, which is another game famous for that.
Yeah, and I think Crystal Palace Brighton was a weird one, but I think that goes back to a rivalry from the Championship. Apparently, they had a pretty fierce rivalry in the Championship.
They've had a rivalry for years. It's like my family. I've been to a lot of Brighton games, and my family are Brighton supporters over there. And there's a proper rivalry between Brighton and Palace. And
that's a weird
for the
one,
life
though.
of me, I think I've tried to read up on it. I still can't really understand what that rivalry is all about, but it's a pretty fierce one. So all those sort of derby games were called off.
Yeah, I have a feeling it's from their Championship days. Probably because they were always rivals for promotion and stuff like that. So I have a feeling it's from that. But Everton managed to squeak out a 1-0 win at home to West Ham. West Ham is still continuing to struggle. Everton, after watching Everton against Liverpool, and now that they've gotten Did they win the? Was this the next game after Liverpool? Because last week was cancelled. I'm pretty sure that's right. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but like they did, considering where Everton were or where Everton are, they did sort of impress me in that Liverpool game, and in my opinion, I think they could have walked away with a win. Not saying they deserved a win, but they could have walked away with one.
Yeah.
And yeah, now they've backed it up with the results to West Ham, and I think Lampard is slowly starting to click, get his team to click. You know, they're starting to actually play some decent football. I watched a little bit of that game. Didn't watch the whole game. I ended up going for a walk because the rivers here in town flooded, so I wanted to see how they looked. And like, you know, there was basically like massive, like, you know, 50-meter trees, and like half of them were underwater. So it was a sight to behold, basically.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah,
I don't blame you for leaving Everton versus West Ham to go and see that.
I'll send you some photos afterwards. But
Yeah,
if people want to look it up, just look up Karlovat's news, and there'll probably be pictures there. But anyway, what are Spurs? Damn! I haven't at least watched the highlights to Leicester Spurs, but Son got a hat trick in that game. Leicester are just
after coming on as a sub.
Yeah, Leicester are just. Rodgers will get the next one to get sacked. Do you reckon? And there's rumors. There's rumors Pochettino will go to Leicester. Then that's that. I've heard that on the manager merry-go-round.
Oh, that might be a good one. That might be an interesting one.
See that one is more interesting than Pochettino to Chelsea, and this one makes more sense. This one makes more sense because I reckon Leicester actually have a pretty decent team, but they're just not performing. Like I wouldn't say.
I agree with that as well.
I wouldn't say they're a top 4 team, but I'd say they're 8th, 9th, maybe.
Yeah, on a good season. They've obviously just got all that for Fafana money in as well.
Yeah, but they didn't spend it because they got it like pretty much on the last day.
Yeah, which is good. So if they do get a Pochettino, he's got a bit of a kitty.
Yeah, a little bit of kitty cat. But yeah, like.
But honestly, I think Tottenham were much of the same. But it's good that they came up against a team who are as fragile as Leicester are at the very moment.
From what I've heard, like Leicester didn't. It's not like Leicester played bad and like Spurs just absolutely battered them for 90 minutes, which is what the scoreline would suggest. It was more that, from what I've heard, it was more that it was like an even game, but the chances just fell to Spurs, and they took advantage of their chances. Like I can't be stuffed watching Spurs, but I might just bring up the highlights, and like that was sort of that, like extended highlights might give a little bit of an idea alongside the stats.
First half was very even. One thing I will say, which was a huge, it was 2-2.
Yeah, so
the huge positive, apart from Son finally scoring for Tottenham, was Bentancur in this game. I thought he was immense, and he's such a functional midfielder for what Conte wants, and he was very good in this game and scored the go-ahead goal after press. I think he forced 2 key errors from Leicester in this game for goals, so that's definitely a positive. But again, just Spurs, I don't have that much nice things to say about them. I think they're pretty tedious to watch most of the time, to be quite honest.
And then Man City obviously got the result against Wolves. Grealish
just quickly,
silencing the 100 million pound critics. Go on with your...
Well, especially at that place back in the Midlands where he's especially hated, apart from... Well, maybe he's hated at Villa, but he got him 100 mil, so I don't know why he'd be hated at Villa.
I'll ask you a question of follow-up after you say your thing, but go on.
Well, my quick rant is, and like I've done this with, I praised Bruno Lage for not straying from what made Wolves successful in their first couple of seasons up in the Premier League under Nuno. What the hell business does he have playing a back four against Man City? Why is he doing that? I mean, they're so much better in a back three or a back five. And then for the toughest test you're going to have all season, you want to go and play a back four when it just doesn't make any sense. City notoriously, I wouldn't say struggle, but the formation they probably struggle against the most is a back five. I mean, I think Wolves did the double maybe over them a couple of seasons ago, playing a five
I
three
think
two.
so.
When Adama Traore was sensational for him in both of those games. So I don't know what business he has trying to play a back four in this game, and it completely backfired. And City made very easy work of them. So that's it.
Yeah. Just on the Grealish point, like, and this sort of goes to the question. You know how like we've seen these big money transfers, like Grealish 100 mil, Bale. I think that was 90 mil to Real Madrid. Um, what's Coutinho 130 mil to Barca. So okay, so Grealish was obviously the most integral part. I think he came through Aston Villa's youth system. He was their best player. And like, yeah, I think he's 25, 26. I think he was 25 when he moved. Like, I don't really understand, like, unless he moved to a direct rival. Who's Aston Villa's direct rival? Is it Birmingham?
Birmingham, but Birmingham aren't in the
Yeah,
Premier
they're in
League,
the
obviously, and then
championship.
they've got, and then there's a little bit of rivalry between Wolves and West Brom, just given they're all from the Midlands.
Yeah, but like, it's not like he moved from Aston Villa to Birmingham, which Aston Villa's in Birmingham, aren't they? Like,
Yeah,
my English geography is meh. So it's not like he moved from Aston Villa to Birmingham, like a direct rival, like, like a Tottenham Arsenal rivalry. So he moved to someone who's not, and someone who to a team that's not even going to be challenging Aston Villa for a Europa League spot, or, like, around where you would expect Aston Villa to be in the table. He moved to a team that's pretty much always going to win the league. So they're not even like a direct competitor for any competition that they're in. Um, Aston Villa obviously got 100 mil for him. My question is, like, and this goes for any transfer, like, why would a team like Aston Villa, who are a mid-table team, why would they hate on that? Because, like, you as your boyhood, like, you as a player, and, like, just made your boyhood club £100 million profit, or €100 million profit. So why would there be any hate on him for that? Like, you know, I don't
I don't.
understand that.
Well, if there is,
If there
and I
is, if
must
there
admit,
is,
I'm not hugely aware of that dynamic between, particularly Villa, but I know the dynamic between English football fans and Jack Grealish isn't a very good one, and he gets booed pretty much at any stadium he goes to. I don't know why he's just such an easy target for people to hate for some reason. I
yeah.
guess maybe it's the way he looks. He's had some indiscretions off the pitch. He cost £100 million. So, like, I guess I can see it, but at the same time, when I've heard his interviews, while I don't think he speaks all that well, I don't think he's
Well, he is
like
from the Midlands.
overly. Yeah, I know. I don't think he's overly cocky. I don't think he's overly
Yeah.
individualistic. I think he seems to want to integrate with his teammates, want to play for the system and the club that he's at. So, and obviously he was Aston Villa captain, so there's responsibility that goes with that. Like I said, he didn't always meet the responsibility that goes with that, but um, yeah, he is. He does seem to be a very easy target, and if that's coming from Villa fans, I don't understand it at all. Because, like you say, he's demanded such a great transfer sum for that
and
club,
and
and
also,
and he's moving. He's progressing his career, which
yeah.
is what you expect a footballer to do.
But also, he didn't force the transfer either.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure
yeah,
100 mil
exactly.
was the release clause, if I'm not mistaken. So, like, City just came in for him, like, triggered his release clause, and it's like, okay, well, may as well start the negotiations. But at the same time, yeah, like, you just pocketed your boyhood club 100 mil. which, for a team like Aston Villa, that's a massive amount of money. Whereas you have someone like, for instance, Fofana, I think he was like refusing to play for Leicester. I know that he obviously didn't grow up through their youth system, but like someone like Fofana, that he went about it the wrong way. Whereas Grealish was like, he was happy. I'm pretty sure he was happy to stay at Villa, but like, they triggered his release clause and he moved. And yeah, like you said, he progressed his career.
Yeah, I think it swung too far, the amount of stick that he cops from probably the media as well as the fans. And it's somewhat, and I know we're going to talk about it in a different pod, but it's somewhat sort of what we saw, the reaction to Bowley's comments, in terms of him just being another dumb American, and Gary Neville's comments in particular, which I thought were bang out of line, and we'll go into that on a different pod, but such an emotional response, which was unnecessary. And I get his agenda because obviously he wants to get the Glazers out of United, but it's too far. Like you can have a little poke and say like, why are you coming in with this arrogant sort of viewpoint? Why are you trying to change our game or whatever? Which even for me, I still don't like that approach.
Yeah.
Because there are things that you can take from other sports from all around the world. Like, don't be so arrogant to think this is the way we've always done it and this is how we're always going to do it. I think that's a ridiculous viewpoint to have. But yeah, Neville. I love Gary Neville as a pundit when he talks about football.
Mm-hmm.
But when he goes into the emotional stuff, I can't stand him. He goes way too far over the top. Just like his thing about the Super League. I just think, you know what? Just articulate properly why this is such a problem. And, but just like there are some good things that you can take from this idea. So I can't stand overly emotional responses to things. I think it just swings too far. And this Grealish thing might be another example of that. Whereas, like, what's the guy really done wrong? Not that much.
Yeah, exactly. So, on the next pod, since there's only international fixtures, on the next pod we'll go into the All-Star idea again. We'll revisit that one since we'll have time. But the last game.
Yeah, go on. I know you've been saving this one for last from the Premier League. Go on.
Look, you know what? I think we can agree on the fact that I think that Arsenal is playing the best type of football in the Premier League, or the most attractive type of football. And for any neutral, I think they're the go-to team to watch at the moment. Like, for instance, I'll watch every Arsenal game. But I mentioned it before, Man City, I know what I'm going to get. And it's so, whereas with Arsenal, it's a similar recipe to Man City, but it feels different. And I don't know whether I'm seeing that with an Arsenal veil over my eyes, or whether I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible, but it just seems like there's something different. Maybe because it's a little bit less control of the ball on the ball, and it's a little bit more direct. But Arsenal got their revenge on Brentford from last season, and with a nice little kickabout, as Ivan Toney would say. Nice little kick about the lads.
This has been sitting in my stomach. Nice kick about with the lads this afternoon. God damn it.
Well, it worked. They did get the home win last season, so it worked. And then they got a 3-0 away win to Brentford. And I think this is also good that they bounced back from the Man United defeat, especially after also having a week off. Their last game was Zurich, which was like 10 days ago, because they didn't play midweek against what was that?
PSV.
Yeah, they didn't play midweek against PSV, so
yeah,
they had 10 days off. I guess the flip side to all that is that now I think there's going to be a little bit of fixture congestion, I think in November for them, so that sort of sucks. I also saw that their match against Man City apparently is postponed, which was touted for mid-October, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm not sure why that one's being postponed.
I have a feeling that might have been because of the rescheduling
just because
of
of
the
everything.
PSV.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Arsenal are playing absolutely fantastic, and I'm still not going to put them as title challengers, but considering where they are right now on the table and how they're playing as well, if they don't make top four top four is a minimum now, like especially now, like as an owner, when you give your manager the, like, on FIFA when you do manager mode, like you'd have minimum requirements that you have to hit. Top four is now like a locked minimum. Like if you don't get top four, especially after the start that they've had and the way that they're playing, and I think I did mention it last season. If Arsenal don't get top four, I wouldn't necessarily be against Arteta getting sacked. More so now.
Definitely.
More so now. However, I will preface that with the fact that a lot of things can change in the middle of the season, and there's obviously a World Cup. There's more, Arsenal now playing more games because they're in the Europa League, so there has to be like an injury crisis now. And if they don't reinforce in January, if there is a crisis, then I think it's like unforgivable if they don't make top four.
Well, with that preface sort of ringing in our ears, ringing true, I'll use the same one, but I'll say, for me, from what I've seen so far this season, if it's not Arsenal to challenge, it's going to be no one, because I think they're comfortably, from what I've seen, the second best team. See, Tottenham are the one who are still clinging on, but I swear, if I don't see Tottenham play better in the next couple of weeks,
well,
they might still win.
They were meant to
might
have
keep
their
winning.
game against City. They were meant to
Yeah,
they were meant to get their first test pretty much, or their second test pretty much against City. But like obviously, with everything that happened.
But like we've said in the past, that sometimes is a good game for Tottenham because of the way they play.
I do want to mention though, like with Arsenal, like how last season I mentioned that from what I saw when they played Liverpool, when they played City, I thought that their starting 11 was good enough to compete. Not necessarily win every game, but win 2 or 3 games out of 10, maybe possibly 4 games. And like they showed that last season, but it was their squad depth that really let them down. This season, I'm a little bit happier with their squad depth because, for instance, now you got so Ben White can fill in obviously at centre back for either Saliba or Gabriel, but he's playing right back. You got Tomiyasu there. You also got Cedric is still at the club as well. But if you
don't, you're weakening your argument.
I know. Cedric. Yeah, okay, but no, I know he's the third choice. That's all I'm saying. Like we have 3 choices for right back. He's the third choice, but like it's Tomiyasu and Ben White now. And Ben White's keeping Tomiyasu out of the club. And like last season, Tomiyasu hit the ground running, and he was a massive miss when he got injured. So, and in the past games, Tomiyasu's been coming on for Ben White in the last 20 minutes, half an hour. Lokonga has shown he's an okay replacement for Partey, but now in this game we've seen how big of a miss Partey was, because I don't think those goals against at least the second or third goal against United, they don't fall if Partey's in that midfield. They don't happen, I don't think. Also, like we have
first goal. First goal more so for me. Maybe the second goal still happens because it's such a good ball from Bruno, but the first goal doesn't happen for me in that United
possibly
game.
Yeah. But the first goal, I'd say it's more down to Zinchenko closing down Rashford when he shouldn't have. But there we go. We have Zinchenko and Tierney as well, two left backs. If you bring one on, it's like, oh damn, we're missing. We're going down by 5 or 10%. Now it's like, okay, this guy offers a little bit something different, but the quality is still pretty much around the same level. Fabio Vieira, he got his first start for Arsenal. Actually, no, his first start I think was against Zurich, but his first Premier League start. Got a goal as well. He looked pretty decent. Like I still prefer Odegaard there. Xhaka is playing with I don't know, like something's been lit under his ass, in a good way. The only thing is like Nketiah isn't getting the game time just because Jesus is keeping him out. Also, that is it Marquinhos, the guy they signed, the right winger. He looked very good against Zurich, and he's only 18, so he's a. I'm not saying he's a long-term replacement for Saka, but like, you can bring him on with the last 15 or 20 minutes to go. There's a little bit of squad depth there where if Arteta looks behind him to his bench, he's like, okay, I'm not losing anything if I bring in one of these players. If anything, it's going to stay the same, or I'm adding a slightly different dimension. Whereas last season, it's like, holy shit, who do I have to bring on?
Except for Partey. That's the only one.
Yeah,
that's such a key position, and it's the same point we've made it so many times. But it's scary that he's such an upgrade on your second, but he's so injury prone. That's the scary thing with him.
Yeah, and like I'm not sure. I think was it? I think it's either a player from Napoli or AC Milan that I've seen that I really like, that I would have liked to have.
Tonali.
Yeah. I think it might have been Tonali, but also Frank Kessie, I reckon, would have been an excellent backup to Partey if Barca.
I don't think you could.
If Barca couldn't have registered him,
because if that came in. I looked at that one because I wondered, like, why did Frank Kessie move from AC to Barcelona? Apart from the fact that it's Barcelona. He was on like 70,000 pounds or euros a week at AC. He went up to 260,000 at Barcelona. So I can see why he went.
Okay.
But he I think is a player who's wasted, and I think a lot of teams could use him. And I don't necessarily at this early stage think Xavi fancies him, but I think he's fantastic and someone who should be playing somewhere else. But I can understand why he went to Barcelona for that money.
Oh, just quickly, was Koundé playing midfield on the weekend for Barca?
Right back. He normally plays right back for Barca.
Right back. Okay.
It's a weird one.
That was a weird one. And Araujo was playing centre back. But we'll go back
Araujo went back to centre back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to finish on the Arsenal point, it's your first point. I wouldn't put them as a better footballing side than City right now, but to sort of stress your point, it's because Arsenal are new. It's more the fact that it's not your veil of Arsenal, it's more a veil of we know what we get from City now.
It's refreshing.
Like we know, every week we know what we get from City. But Arsenal, in terms of they're a younger team in their development, so you get more unpredictability in that. And it's new to see a team who is younger in their development playing to this level. So for me, I still put City as number one, but Arsenal are number two for me. And I've been saying that for a few weeks now. And the thing, just to finish on this Arsenal love-in, the thing that's really impressed me, and I think I've said it a few times, but the containing play, the way that they do not let teams out, their structure. When they have possession of the ball, their structure behind the ball, or their structure with those players who are tasked to, if it breaks down, contain the ball in or delay and let everyone get back, I think has been very solid with the way they've used the fullbacks, tucking in and giving a lot of support to those central midfielders. One thing, kind of like my Kyle Walker point, if he starts using Tierney as one of those players who inverts, I think there's a trapping possibility there, because I don't think he's that kind of controlling
he's not.
Midfield player like a Zinchenko. So if smart teams can cotton onto that, there might be a trapping opportunity. But their structure behind the ball, when they have possession of it, has been fantastic, and they really dominate games in that way and don't let teams out. And they've been mightily impressive in doing that this season.
You know what? Like the one thing that's sort of I'm not sure if it's scary for the opposition or if it's worrying as an Arsenal fan, is that Saka hasn't hit stride yet. Well, he hasn't been getting the goals that he was getting last season, which is similar to, I guess, Salah. Like Salah hasn't hit his stride yet for Liverpool this season, and I'm not sure I'm not sure why that is, because he does always get doubled up on when he receives the ball. But like now that you have Jesus and Martinelli, like you would have thought it would take the pressure off Saka, which it hasn't. Like they're still doubling up on him, sometimes even tripling up on him, and he just isn't getting that space that you would expect him to get, considering the threats in the middle and the other wing.
My only theory on that is he's out of those front three that you've just mentioned, he's the one who is tasked to play the widest most regularly out of those three. So in terms of numbers, maybe that's not best for goals. It might be good for assists.
He is
But
getting
like you
some
say,
assists.
he gets a lot of gravity from the opposition brought to him, and maybe that frees up Martinelli and Jesus to have a little bit more space to operate in and get their numbers.
But he hasn't. When I've seen him on the ball as well, he hasn't looked. He seems a little bit off the pace as well. Like I'm not sure what it is, but like he just seems like he's a little bit out of form. He doesn't seem as sharp as what I'm used to seeing him. So
yeah, I think he's looked pretty good, but obviously I don't watch Arsenal as intently as an Arsenal supporter. So there's I'd probably look at the positive of that when you're playing as well as you are, and you don't think this guy's playing up to potential.
yeah.
Could be a scary thought, like you say.
Similar to Salah, like once he does hit the ground running, that's going to be worrying for the opposition, and as a Liverpool fan, like you're just going to be basking in that glory. So
there's not been much glory this season.
He did get a goal against Ajax, so maybe that ketchup bottle is finally unclogged.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. So let's quickly go into the other two big fixtures from the weekend, and then we'll wrap this up because we're already over the 2 hour mark.
Did you watch these?
I watched a little bit of the Napoli AC Milan one, I think up until the 60th minute, and because I was watching other things, so I watched it like back, and then like it was already getting late, so I just went to bed. So
great game, game, best game of the weekend for me.
It was very good, yeah.
Just a pity that Rafael Leao got a suspension from his last game and couldn't play in this one. That was the only firework we were missing, but Milan were on a unbeaten run of 22 games going into this, and Napoli brought it to an end at the San Siro, and for me, pretty much legitimised why I saw them as the chief threat. I know at Atalanta, I think I don't know if they're still top, but they were top going into this game. But we'll see when Atalanta maybe play. They played Roma on the weekend, which is another big game in its own right. And Roma lose at home 1-0 to Atalanta. So that's a pretty devastating loss for their title challenge, or hopes anyway. So really I see this Napoli and this AC Milan game being number 1 and number 2 in Italy. And it was a really good game. I thought, like I said, I didn't think there was enough of that initial penalty, but I thought AC Milan's reaction was fantastic to go on a goal down. And in particular, Theo Hernandez was unreal once they went a goal down. I thought he was pretty good in the game anyway, but when they went a goal down, he just went up to another level. He, for me, and I know as a Liverpool fan, I've been privileged enough to see it. Sometimes it's a gift and a curse in Trent Alexander-Arnold. But I've seen it for years now. A fullback, and we see it with Cancelo now as well, but a fullback who has so much influence on the creativity of a team. I've never seen a fullback, for me, have more influence in creating chances for a team as Theo Hernandez does for AC Milan, yet who can do the defensive stuff when he's asked to. And he's an absolute powerhouse. He's quick, he's strong. He can do absolutely everything, this guy. I don't know, off the top of my head, I don't know if I've seen a more complete fullback. So if he continues on this trajectory, he could be one of the greats who's ever done it in that position in the game. He is unreal for AC Milan, and he's only 24. I thought it was... I know Rafael Leao was really good last season, but I thought it was somewhat a crime that Theo Hernandez didn't win Serie A Player of the Year. And I was really impressed by their reaction to going a goal down. And I thought 1-1 was probably a fair result for this game. But, Napoli have so many attacking threats. They bring on Simeone off the bench and he finds the winner. I didn't think it was really deserved at that point of the game, but I can't really deny this Napoli team because they're so exciting to watch. I thought in this game it was probably Anguissa's worst game of the season. Worst is relative, but it was his most quiet game of the season. He didn't really make mistakes, but he wasn't really that influential to what we normally see. But Kvaratskhelia, even though I didn't think he had a very good game, still was able to make a decisive impact. And a shout out to, firstly, Merritt in goal, who I thought was very good for Napoli. But Kim Min-jae at the back was absolutely sensational for Napoli. He is probably on form of what I've seen this season. He's my favourite centre-back to watch in Europe. He has come in and for what we've seen so far, Kalidou they don't even miss Koulibaly. He's been fantastic for them, and look, it makes this title race. I know we're so early, and maybe Napoli don't hold on. They were in it till the end of last season as well, so they do have history of capitulating. Even under Sarri, they came very close to titles there as well. So we know Napoli have that history, and I still put AC Milan as my favourites to retain. But what a game this was, and what a big win for Napoli, ending that AC Milan unbeaten streak.
I don't really have much to add to that, but like from watching like the first, I watched about the first 60 minutes. Like, yeah, it was a very exciting game. Like, it was back and forth, and I don't know. I couldn't really. I went into it as a neutral, so I couldn't really. I didn't really have like any team that I wanted to win, but I think Napoli is starting to. Like, I watched them a little bit over the last couple of weeks, and I'm starting to like them. They're starting to.
Yeah.
But even though, like, going back, like, you know how you have like your sort of favorite team from each league. My favorite team was always AC Milan, but I think going into this game, I think just because Napoli have always, like, AC Milan have always been that powerhouse of Italian football, whereas Napoli have always been. I know Maradona obviously played for him, but at least going after Maradona left, and they haven't won the league since Maradona left, right?
Yeah, I don't think so.
So like they're now they got
underdog. Maradona.
Yeah. So, but they've always been that sort of underdog over the last couple of seasons, where they've always been in and around that title hunt, but they've always dropped off. So maybe this year will be when they actually get it. Who knows? I guess as the games go on, we'll see.
And I've just got to add this as well, because I talked about Leao not being able to play in this, but let's not forget Napoli didn't have Victor Osimhen in this game.
Yeah, he's injured, isn't he?
Yeah, he got injured in the Liverpool game. So
is it a hamstring or something? Because I think that's what he was holding.
Yeah, it looks like a hamstring.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally agree. Napoli are a must-watch TV for me so far this season. They're so exciting, and they're just so good as well. And AC Milan also, for me, are pretty much must-watch TV. I think it's not so much for the team for AC, it's more so for some individuals in the games, like Theo Hernandez, who I've already raved about. Rafael Leao's exciting. Giroud had a really good game in this game. So Tonali as well, who we've talked about. So yeah, hopefully these teams can do well in the Champions League as well, because like I've been saying, I do want Italian football to be strong again, and I want them to be relevant, and I want these teams to keep hold of their players and to really grow together and become really good teams in European competition.
Let's see how they go. Yeah. But the other big game, the Madrid Derby, I didn't...
Did you watch this one?
Not really, because it was on... it was, for some reason, it wasn't broadcast in HD, and like I tuned in and I was like, far out, this is shit.
You're a snob.
I can't watch this. Like it was like a little bit pixelated. I was like, I thought like this channel was meant to be generally HD, so like I don't know. Maybe it was either just that broadcast. I don't know what it was, but for some reason, like I thought, how sometimes you start a stream, and then like it starts in like a low quality, and then and like I gave it 5 or 10 minutes, and like it didn't improve. So I was just like, screw this. Like, so I don't know. I might give it like, cause since I can go, I'll see if they broadcast it on one of the other channels, which is what they usually do. They just broadcast a replay. So I'll just like tune into like the replay on one of the other channels. So I might do that. Like I ended up just watching.
Don't bother.
No?
Don't bother. It wasn't that special.
All right, I'll just have a look at the highlights then.
Yeah, do that. The first goal was pretty nice. The link up between Tchouaméni on Rodrigo's finish was really nice. It was just a game where Real Madrid were clinical in their moments, and Atletico played like Atletico. They came out high intensity first 20 minutes, but they can't sustain it. And then when they're asked to play more football, they can't really do it, and they didn't really do it. And yeah, I just think it showed the class gap between these two teams, and Real Madrid are just looking stronger and stronger, more like Europe's best team every week. And they go away to the Wanda, and they make fairly light work of it. I know Courtois makes a mistake at the end for Atletico's only goal, but apart from that, I don't think they were really tested, and it was pretty clear that even Real Madrid not playing very well was still a better team than Atletico. So what we're all waiting for. I know Real Betis are doing well in La Liga, but I thought they were unbelievably fortunate to get the result against Girona on the weekend. I've touted the praises of Villarreal, but in recent weeks they've lost Gerard Moreno, who's their key striker. I don't know how long he's out for, but that's a massive loss for them. Lo Celso also came off early in their game on the weekend, so if they've lost those two players, who I think are probably the two best attacking players, I don't give them much chance. Maybe finishing top four, but definitely not a chance to challenge Barcelona or Real Madrid. So it looks like it's the old days in La Liga, or we're just waiting for Real Madrid against Barcelona.
When is that fixture going to be?
I'm not sure.
I don't know. So we're gonna look it up now, or just let it be?
If I could get it quickly, then let's see. 16th of October.
Oh, so it's not
what I got.
It's not that far away, actually. Considering we have an international break, we return next weekend. So it's like 4 match days away, something like that. So
yeah,
it's not too bad.
Yeah, that's what we're waiting for. That one.
Yeah. Caleb, my friend, we've been running for 2 hours and 22 minutes. Is there anything else you want to touch on?
No, I'm good. We'll leave a little bit of meat on the bone for the next pod, but we left the people hanging for over a week. It was a good week to do it because all those Premier League games that got postponed.
Yeah,
but we've come back. We've come back stronger. We've given nearly 2.5 hours.
It was fortunate that the Queen died, so that there was no Premier League, so that we didn't have to, so that we could take a week off. That's a very nice way of putting it, isn't it?
She did it for Liverpool, and she did it for us.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just the timing of it. Hang on. Oh, one thing that I did want to mention. That was. And this is going back to the Arsenal game. We'll finish on that. I've seen like some of the guys on TalkSport, like especially Jason Cundy, like he went in hard on Arteta for bringing on that 15-year-old and Wari, or however you say his name. Sorry if I'm butchering it, mate. If you listen, but like. And I heard other people say, oh, like Arteta made it all about him because now it's like, oh, Arteta brought on the youngest player ever, and it's like that's bullshit. Because like I think like Wilshere made his debut at like 16 and 20 days or 100 days or something. Harvey Elliott made his debut as well at like 16. Fabregas made his debut at 16. He was like a fully fledged starter at 16, and like this guy is like 15 and 280 days or something like that. It's like. And yeah, like he only got brought on for 4 minutes, and I think like one touch was a tackle, and the other touch was like, I think he only got like 2 touches. But like, what did you make of it? Like, is it a big deal? Like, the
No, who
I don't
cares?
understand it.
Yeah, I don't look. I don't see what goes on at training. So maybe the guy was training really well,
Apparently, he was, and like,
and he just
there's been
needs
injuries as well to the
exactly,
team. So
exactly. So, and it's a nice moment for the lad, and like, who cares? And one thing I will say is, um, be happy that you're getting this kind of coverage because it means that you're relevant and
mm,
people want to talk about the dumbest shit about your club.
mm.
So it just means that you're relevant and you're in people's crosshairs and in people's perspectives, and they want to talk shit about you. So
I thought the take
all
on
I'll
it
say is be
was,
happy about that
yeah, I thought the
because
take on it was
we've.
absolutely dumb though.
Oh yeah, no, it's for
Because
me it's ridiculous. And as soon as you say Jason Cundy, I'm out. The guy's an idiot. I'm
yeah,
sorry. If he listens, I'm not sorry to you because you come across as an idiot. I don't know you personally. You might not be that way. You might do it all for the views. I hope you do. But my God, like his takes are just awful.
I'm gonna clip this and put it on TikTok. Uh, and I'll try and tag him. I'll do if he has a TikTok, I'll just like at whatever his bloody handle is. But yeah, I thought it was an absolutely stupid take from him. So like, and yeah, like the whole notion that Arteta's making it all about him. Well, what about all the other managers that brought on that, like, would break the record for bringing? It's like they didn't make it all about them. Like, give the kid.
One thing I will
Yeah,
one thing I will say is that as long as your club continues to be good and relevant, we can't take gripes with everything everyone says. Because if I did that for Liverpool last season, we would have had like a 15-minute section every week.
yeah. Well,
Just be happy. That's it.
one
That's my only advice. Be
yeah.
happy.
Well, one of the takes that I did hear from one, I think from Danny Murphy, he said that it might have also been a way to sort of tell the other clubs that are hanging around, that have seen how good he is, as it's a way of telling them to piss off, and like, we take this kid seriously, and he's going to be the next future star, like within the next 4 or 5 years. So
Well, for me, that's the best take in regards to that. It's the one that makes the most sense.
yeah,
But for me, there shouldn't even be takes around this.
yeah.
It's just they
It
brought on
should just
15-year-old, they were 3-0 up. Who cares?
Yeah, it should just be a nice moment for him. The kid's gonna get all the women at school now, or girls, whatever. Like,
At
he's
school as well.
yeah,
Crazy.
like, it's. I think I heard them, the Arsenal fans even singing like, "You've got school in the morning." So like, and yeah, like, dude, but just imagine that. Like, I think he's like in year 11 or something, and playing for Arsenal. Like, a couple of minutes. And then the very next day, you got your homework due.
Yeah, I
Like,
know, crazy.
you're getting detention because you haven't done your homework because you're playing for Arsenal. Like, imagine that. It's like, why haven't you done your homework? Oh, I had a game for Arsenal. It's like, bullshit. Then he has to bring out like the newspaper clipping. But
Newspaper. He probably doesn't know what a newspaper is.
yeah. But look, good on the lad. Hopefully his career trajectory continues on whatever path Arsenal envision it to be continuing on, and hopefully we'll see him in maybe a League Cup game or an FA Cup, like, early round, maybe. I don't know. So yeah, we'll see. Yeah, but to all those critics out there, screw you.
He's trying to get a job as his agent or something, or his PR person.
Oh,
Trying to
man.
jump on early.
Yeah, I should do that. I'll just I'll send him an email now. Send him a TikTok. That's probably the best way to communicate with him. Or like, just slide into his Insta DMs. Probably get charged for soliciting minors or something.
No. We got to end this pod before
Yeah,
we start.
we better get off it.
Too candidly about this topic.
Yeah, like we're joking now, but like, people can't seem to take a joke these days, and like, sometimes they take things that you say seriously. So like, just to be clear, these are all jokes.
These are all jokes.
These are all yucks. So yeah, look. I think it's the perfect time to sign off. We're about to hit the 2 hour and 30-minute mark. We gave our praises to teams that deserve praise, and gave our is it credences to teams that deserve
I've got criticism, but
criticism. What
it is. Yeah.
I need to rub up rub up. My English vocabulary and my sayings have just like gone downhill, man. Like since I don't speak English every day. So yeah, I'm gonna stop. To everyone that's been listening, thanks for putting up with us, especially for the last 5 minutes. It's been chaos. So everyone, thanks for listening and bye for now.